was a real pleasure. And I think did work has resulted in a product that surfaces some quite valuable insights and actions that can be taken. And it just it was a pleasure working with the team. So with that, what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Shale. He'll walk us through this presentation. Please feel free to ask questions as we go. We're going to make this the most valuable use of your time.
Thanks. Good morning, Mayor Dodds, Deputy Mayor Clark is present today. Thank you for meeting with us to discuss the labor markets, industry gap analysis of educational needs assessment study reports. Quickly on our agenda today, we start off with a quick introduction of what necessitated the project, as well as the approach taken to conduct the study. And then we're going to move on to discuss the findings from the current state assessments, the gaps identified, as well as the recommendations that we've come up with to address the existing labor market, education, and industry challenges. So I'm just going to dive in quickly with respect to the product introduction. Over the past decades, Great Valley has experienced economic fluctuations, particularly across primary sectors like oil and gas and agriculture. And this has affected business stability as well as workforce development across the town. And to address this issue, KPMG was engaged to conduct the study to identify the existing challenge, identify and validate the existing challenges, and recommend strategic actions to address them. And as part of our work, we leveraged a three-step approach. First was analyzing historical trends and gathering qualitative insights and information from local and regional stakeholders through discovery sessions. And we moved on to identify and assess the gaps that were that surfaced from the current state assessments as well as the stakeholder engagement. From the gaps we identified, we were able to collaboratively work with the economic development team within the town to recommend strategic actions to address those challenges. And quickly moving on specifically to the current state, with respect to the current state assessment, it is important to note that we conducted the historical trend analysis across the key areas shown on the left-hand side of this particular page. Leveraging historical data from Statistics Canada between the census periods 2016 and 2021. So we do recognize the fact that within the next census periods, certain statistics that we use to conduct this assessment.
Sorry guys, can I interrupt real quick? We're having a bit of a tough time hearing you guys. You guys are kind of in and out. I don't know if you can move closer to a mic or if you have any other options there.
Okay. Just working on my mic now. Can you hear us better? Can you hear us better?
Yeah, it's just it's sort of muffled, and then you kind of trail off, and then can't hear you 100%.
Try joining from another device. Give us one moment, please.
Sure.
Just put us on mute for a second while we go through this. Can you hear us right now? Are you able to hear us?
I think that might be a little better.
Okay, that's good. If you don't hear us at any point, just let us know, please.
Sure, I think that's a little more clear, is it? Everybody?
Okay.
Yeah,
Right, that's
try
good.
that, sure.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm just going to backtrack a bit. With respect to the current state assessments, it is important to note that we conducted the historical trend analysis across the key area presented on the left-hand side of this page, leveraging historical data from Statistics Canada between 2016 and 2021. And the current state assessment revealed that the town has experienced state population increase between 2016 and 2021, but there has been a decline in the number of individuals within the age groups 20 to 54, which is possibly attributable to them seeking educational or career flights, as well as due to family factors. And this underscores the growing importance of educational needs and how the region is becoming more competitive in attracting skilled talent. In addition, with respect to taking on educational programs, we observed that apprenticeship enrollments rose between the two census periods, and the number of college and university graduates declined. While employment grew across some key sectors like agriculture, retail, and food services, we observed that there was a noticeable decline in the number of small businesses operating in the town between the two census periods. An additional analysis we did for the study is conducting an housing analysis, because we see the importance of that in addressing or identifying how to address the challenges within the labor market and industry. And what we found out was that housing and living costs rose slightly, while the town's living wage of approximately $20 being lower than neighboring Alberta municipalities within the region. And on the right-hand side of this slide, we try to just position some of the key highlights from our discussions with the stakeholders through the discovery session we conducted. So part of what we had as the challenges, one key one is workforce shortages across key sectors and occupations. We'll talk a bit more about this when we get specifically to the identified gaps. And then we also did discuss with them opportunities around economic diversification and seeking to leverage the town's strength and collaboration with the county on areas like tourism and seeing how to also help enhance connectivity of programs and how industry collaborates with the educational institutions to help students build mentorship opportunities and business acumen. Specifically around the identified gaps, based on the findings from the current state and the stakeholder consultations, we've identified a couple of gaps and we've categorized them across three buckets: one, labor market, educational needs, and the industry. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them here. The labor market, we talked earlier about the decreasing working population age group, and that really reflects the fact that individuals within the working population are seeking better opportunities, and that's why they potentially are leaving the town. And we do also recognize some of the initiatives that the town has put in place, like the Zero Fee Tuition program, which is really helping to see how to develop talent within the town. One of the findings we also observed was the limited educational enrollments, just seeing how the numbers of college and university graduates has declined between the two census periods. And this really gives us insight in terms of opportunities to address that challenge. And with respect to the industry, we did also note from our discussions as well as from the data analysis that there's also opportunity to apply sector strengths in different ways, also through collaborative economic development, which we see across Alberta, happening across various municipalities in Alberta. With respect to the summary of recommendations and strategic actions that came up, to address the identified gaps, 21 detailed strategic recommendations were identified and defined across the 6 key themes that are positioned on this particular page. Some of these recommendations are those that we've highlighted here, not necessarily all of them. And I'll just touch on a couple of them. With respect to economic diversity and transitioning, we see an opportunity for the town to expand its infrastructural assets through increased regional economic collaboration and partnerships. So, for example, part of our recommendations was with respect to specific organizations that the town can partner with, we identified the Central Alberta Economic Partnership as well as Growth Alberta. And we also did identify the opportunity for the town to expand its communication tools and materials to really position it to kind of make people more aware of the town's strengths, the opportunities, especially around its key sectors like agriculture, tourism, oil and gas, and what the benefits are within those areas. With respect to talent attraction and retention, we see lots of migration into Canada. We see lots of opportunities. People are moving into Alberta. And the question is, how can the town partner with other levels of government to leverage existing economic immigration opportunities for skilled talent attraction? I'll just touch on a few others on this page. One specifically around programming based on workforce demand is also how to enhance collaboration between the local businesses within the town to facilitate apprenticeship, core opportunities, and job training programs. I do recognize that at the start of the council meeting, it was discussed about the Lemonade Day. We believe that's a very good initiative to help individuals build their software technical skills. And we have a couple of recommendations that specifically dive into how to leverage such opportunities. And we've also identified opportunities for increased government and community collaboration through the enhancement of existing and new partnerships with educational bodies to broaden vocational training, scope, and reach. And finally, on e-learning and distant delivery opportunities, this was a critical finding from our stakeholder consultation, in which stakeholders highlighted the importance of creating targeted awareness and publicity about the availability of online education. So we do recognize all of the efforts the tower has been making to improve classroom learnings, creating more opportunities, leveraging the existing facilities within the town. But we also see lots of trend in which students and talents are beginning to benefit from online learnings. And we think it's an opportunity area for the town to tap into, while also leveraging some of the initiatives within the in-person classroom learnings. So I'm just going to pause in here and see if there are any specific questions. We can dive in a bit more into the final report as well as our presentation.
And just the one thing I would note is obviously we've gone through a quick presentation that's supported by a quite detailed report that the council has access to. And so summarize that quickly, and the recommendations identified are supported by detailed tactical implementable actions.
Okay, thank you, fellas. Just maybe one suggestion here. Maybe you guys could turn your camera off, because I think you're kind of coming in and out, and your video is kind of compromised there. So might help with the audio. So I guess we've gone through everything other than the implementation plan. Do we have any questions, I guess, with the content that we've seen and heard so far? Go ahead, Councillor Sheriffs.
I'm following the charts that we got here, and on page 29, it says that the town experienced increase of 103 residents, a growth rate of 1.5%, where on page 31, it says that between 2016 and 2021, the town observed notable surge of 1,775 people relocated to Drayton Valley for the same years. I'm just not sure which one is right now.
So just to confirm with you, you said on page 29 on the gap analysis findings, right?
Yes, so the population growth and characteristics, I'm guessing I don't have the full page. It says that the town experienced increase of 103 residents, growth rate of 1.5 between 2016 and 2021. And then when you flip to the next page, pretty much, it says that between 2016 and 2021, there was a increase of.
Could one be students and one be population in general, perhaps?
So we're having trouble identifying the reference. I think you may be referring to the council package, which we don't have. Is there a page number on our report you could reference? That way we'd be able to answer. We're not able to find the referenced information.
Well, it'd be page 29, I guess, in your guys' slides that we're looking at. Okay. Or is that what you're looking at, Monica? Oh, sorry, that's summary. Yeah, demographic profile, when we look at the population growth and characteristics, I think that's the page Monica's referring to. One of the first lines there says the town experienced an increase of 103 residents, or a
Yeah.
growth rate of 1.5 between 2016 and 2021. Yet when you go, is it here? 31. The very next slide. And then the very next slide, population change 2016 to 21. It indicates there that different numbers.
If I may jump in here, Shun. The 103 resident number is the net change, right? So people obviously entered, Drayton Valley in this 5-year period between 2016 and 2021 and left as well. So that 103 is, it's the difference, people coming in minus people leaving. Whereas on the next slide, we're just looking at the influx. So a total of, 1,700 and so on, 1,775 people relocated to Drayton Valley. But we don't have this detailed data on the people that left, right? So 103 is the net, but 1775 is the gain, and we have a breakdown of that gain, right? Like
Okay, I understand now.
81%.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And we can hear you a lot better now.
Yeah, great. Thanks for your patience as well. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Gimeno.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just wondering, so when we are going through the report here, we are capturing the data from 2016 to 2021.
Yeah.
I believe we are in 2024 now. I was wondering why there's a 2-year, 3-year gap of the capture of data.
So that's essentially just what's available at this point, at the point of this engagement for StatsCat, and Karan might be able to provide more detail if required, but it's around available data sets.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's absolutely right. There is going to be a new Stats Canada release soon, but at the time when we worked on this report, those were the 2 reliable data sources we had: 2021 census data and 2016.
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification. But I think the ground reality is a little bit different now from 2 years ago. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor McGee.
Excuse me. I was most interested in the ag, forestry, fishing, and hunting is up 91%. Is that a StatsCan? Is that where do you derive that from StatsCan as well?
Yes, that's right. So I believe that's on page 13, and what we're trying to position in there is the agricultural, forestry, fishing, and hunting has grown by 91% to 3% of the total.
All right. So we got a 91%, and then we surged down to 3%.
It's a 91% increase within that. So you could think if there was 10 employees, there's now 19, and that 19 equates to 3% of the total employment.
Yeah.
All right. So I can see a lot more people on the North Saskatchewan fishing and hunting right now. Excuse me. Anyway, it's difficult.
So the data would be derived from largely from StatsCan and where people have identified their employment.
And just to, based on what Karam said earlier, that number would potentially have changed between 2021 and now. So as Puran mentioned, within the next census period, we would also see an offshoot based on some of those changes that happened. So that's just as that 2021, what the change was from 2016, based on the available data.
And I think one of the things this report does, and then part of the recommendations relates to, is to continue to assess that, and, you know, and have baseline and framework and structure for this data that can be assessed as the additional data sets are made available.
Okay, great, thanks.
Do we have Bill or Nancy, any questions online?
I have nothing.
Nothing for me.
Okay, thank you. I guess a couple of the things that I see here when we look at the gap analysis findings, when we look at the skills shortage across in-demand occupations, when we look at things like, you know, registered nurses, class 1 drivers, retail and construction workers, you know, it seems that that's not just intrinsic to Drayton Valley. I think that's probably an Alberta, if not Canada-wide issue, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what I'd be looking for is kind of how can we differentiate ourselves from others, right? To maybe up our game in that respect. So I guess I'd be looking to you guys to answer questions like that, maybe provide some guidance on how we can go about upping our game in that from that perspective, as well as you know, I'm assuming that's part of our high-level implementation plan when we take a look at that here after we're done with questions. So not really a question there, just more of a statement. Is there any other questions from anybody else? Anybody from administration even? No. Okay. Okay. Well, we can carry on to the high-level implementation plan and hear what you guys have to say.
Okay. On the high-level implementation plan, so the approach we took was we worked collaboratively with the economic development team, with Condiso leading the team. And what we've done actually is here is basically just a summary of what we have. So we took an additional step to develop a tactical approach in terms of, for implementing each of these actions, what are some of the key steps that need to be done? And as part of this, we also did identify who are the potential primary and supporting stakeholders required to implement each of the strategic actions that were recommended for each of the strategic focus areas, and how long do we believe this is going to take for implementation, as well as how do we prioritize each of those actions, just so we know what is easy to implement, how much time will it need to be implemented, and who are those that are going to partake in it. So this is basically a first step of conducting this. And when we get to the, or when the town gets to the implementation phase, then they really need to reassess the stakeholders that need to be involved, as well as the timeline, what the priorities based on some of the priorities of council as well as administration in the town.
So what I would say is the last slide before we went into questions really summarized the details in this plan and the 6 strategic focus areas. As you can see, there's detailed actions against these that identify the primary stakeholders, the supporting stakeholders, the priority, and our anticipated timeline. So I think this creates a strong foundation for your economic development team to take action against these strategic focus areas. And to the point raised, differentiation, I think it's exactly how we looked at it. There are some, you know, some of the gaps potentially unique to the town, but many challenges that are being faced across rural Alberta and Canada generally. So it really is around how you can differentiate and play to your strengths. So part of that is around focusing on the strengths, communicating those, you know, positioning to identify where, you know, as we look at some of the labor force that is leaving, how we help them to stay. As an example, increasing those e-learning opportunities in collaboration with local members. So again, that we can go back potentially to that summary that shows the 6, and that really that's slide 7. I think. This is how the action plan is organized and some of the key roll-up of those activities that look at that detail. So
Sorry, you're talking, sorry to interrupt, you're talking the 6 key themes are on the executive summary: the economic diversity and transition, talent attraction and retention, education industry collaboration, programming based on workforce demand, government involvement and community collaboration, e-learning and distance delivery opportunities. Are those the 6 you're referring to?
So that's how the action plan and the detailed report
Okay.
is organized, and again, by the attributes that we spoke to in terms of who's involved, the priority, and I think you did a very good point you made around the competitive environment within the town is competing for this labor, and the specific activities and actions, you know, do speak to that and how the town can position competitively based on its strengths, and how to fill those gaps.
And just to add to that, for the discovery sessions we conducted with stakeholders, we also did align discussions with them across these 6 key themes. And one of the benefits of actually engaging the stakeholders was to having individuals on the table who had a regional perspective to what the potential resolutions or initiatives would be to address some of these challenges. And we did hear a lot about collaboration, leveraging existing relationships and building new relationships. One of them is leveraging relationship with the Versailles County and other close municipalities, neighboring municipalities to Drayton Valley within the region. As you mentioned, some of these challenges are not unique to Drayton Valley. So it's also thinking about the collaborative approach to see where you need to work or where the town needs to work with other municipalities within the region to address some of the challenges being faced.
And that is one area that we're seeing elsewhere, a bit of a trend there in terms of rural municipalities creating regional bodies. So looking at creating regional bodies and regional collaboration opportunities to enhance competitiveness.
All right. Do we have any questions on the high-level implementation plan? Can like it. So I'm looking at you know, the implementation plan. We have supporting stakeholders. We have a whole bunch you know, that are listed here now. Are you thinking that so each one of these actions, you know, we would go and interface with each one of these stakeholders and start driving those actions? And I guess I'm just looking more of at like from a time perspective, it seems maybe a little bit cumbersome, and it's a lot of work there, it looks like.
Yeah, and I would say that you need to intensive record identifying them is to say you consider the impact there and the collaboration opportunities. It's not to say that you need to form intermunicipal into stakeholder committees or anything like that necessarily. It's just to say, as you look at these initiatives, here are some of the stakeholders that should be considered and could be helpful in terms of driving this forward. And then obviously we identify where we see the lead, because we think that's quite important in terms of allocating responsibility to the party who's most likely most effective in implementing.
All right. Anybody have anything else? Nancy, Bill online? All right. Go ahead.
Question. I'm just, I'm going through the stakeholder, Zach and Sean, it's Tom McGee, counselor. I'm just going through the stakeholder list. And I'm wondering, were both of you part of the interview process when that was going on here?
Sean led the interview process. I was not involved in the sessions themselves. Yeah.
And with respect to the list of stakeholders, it was a collaborative work with the economic development team. So it wasn't just KPMG sitting down and recommending. We leveraged lots of the existing knowledge about what are some of the initiatives going on, who are some of the key partners we recognize potentially support each of these actions. So it's something that's been worked through over and over again with the economic development team as stakeholders we see that we need to consider in implementing each of these actions.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, I do have a question maybe for administration on this one. I guess a couple of questions. One, is this what you were looking for? Is this what you expected? And then the second part is this achievable?
Thank you for the question. I think we got some good information. And we are working on a plan to make sure that we can get some of these objectives done. It's been a long process of trying to get things that would be doable within the community. So I think overall our department's positive that we can work together to get these done.
And then the other question is from I guess a capacity perspective to like, do you think we can do all of this, or can we do half of this, or quarter of this, or do you have any thoughts around that? And don't need an exact answer, just curious as to a ballpark maybe.
Yeah, so like, as you can see, like we did kind of timeline them out to make it kind of, you know, the medium priorities, high priorities, low priorities, and a time frame. So based on these things and conversations we've had with Conduso and the other team members, it does look like we do have the capacity to get these done.
Okay, and it does, I mean, it does look to me like we already have some of this stuff either on the go or in our plans, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, anything further for Marie-Lynn, anybody? All right.
Do you have any questions?
Go ahead, Rick.
You know, in general, I find this kind of vague in a lot of areas. I would have liked to have seen some exact, I guess, direction. You know, here is where we're short in our community and surrounding area, and this is what we should be concentrating on providing. This is an exact need. And I just see, you know, foster partnerships with local businesses to create apprenticeship and internship programs, co-op opportunities, on-the-job training, collaborate with institutions. A lot of this stuff is to me, stuff we've already kind of looked at, and I was thinking this was going to be the next step. That said, okay, those collaborations should be in these areas. That's where the demand is. Yeah, there's a few different things in here, like talking about promote a platform so we can get, what were they called? Folks who work online and travel all over the place.
Nomads.
Like
Nomads?
nomads. We're trying to attract people to come here and work remotely online for other companies. Is that what that means? I don't know who I'm asking. Sorry, and I don't know if I'll understand the answer that we get online there. That's been incredibly frustrating. I was tempted to say, let's just pack this in and try it again another time. I only got about a third of what was coming out of the screen there. Unfortunately, I don't mean to, I'm not blaming anybody. It's just how it worked out. Yeah. So anyway, that's, yeah, is that what that suggestion is, that we try and reach out to internet nomads to come and work out of their van in Drayton Valley, or I'm sorry, I'm not sure, you know, that seems like a tiny piece that we could, that we probably work pretty hard to try and get, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is what a nomad is. Like they can work anywhere, and we're trying to say that they should work remotely in Drayton Valley. Yeah, I don't know if KPMG has any specific response to the report being more detailed. I don't know if.
Yes, and sorry for the technical challenges. I think appreciate the comment. You know, we didn't start with existing identified potential actions. We started with the analysis. And so we did start with the data, and then based on the data, identified the gaps, and then came to recommendations. And our recommendations are somewhat what I would call, you know, more performance than prescriptive. We didn't get into necessarily the specific details, but I do think there are some quite detailed recommendations, which to your point, you know, one of the ones that you surfaced is around looking to attract folks who can work remotely. It is an area that lots of rural municipalities across the country are focused on, because it allows for, you know, additional, allows for growth, and the positive that comes with that in areas that the town labor just can't support. So as an example, you know, we tried to get that balance right based on the scope of the engagement and the data that we were assessing.
And just to add to that, part of what we did was, and Marilyn, you can speak to this, part of what we did was, in developing the high-level implementation plan, we did identify who are the potential organizations or partners. So, for example, we talked about economic collaboration.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
This needs to be done.
Zach and Sean.
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yep, sort of. Zach and Sean, it's Tom McGee with another question. Your subject matter experts, and if there was one thing that you would draw from this report for the town of Drayton Valley, and that's strictly the town. So you've studied the report, you've written the report. Is there one or two things that you would draw to our attention that would make this study really important? Seems less important at the moment.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, and I'll let Sharon provide his perspective as well. But I think the three areas that jump to mind initially, one, that's ability to form, and we've identified some of the specific entities to form those regional and formalize those regional collaboration relationships to drive economic development for the region. That includes Drayton Valley. I think that's the trend that we're seeing. And we see lots of opportunity there to enhance investment and collaboration and cooperation with local partners to be more competitive. One, two is on the education side, and the e-learning potential, and really looking and helping to facilitate how local educational institutions can expand their offering in partnerships or some form of collaboration with e-learning, with the institutions that offer additional learning opportunities remotely, and getting that hybrid balance between in-person and remote. That should encourage and provide additional opportunities to young people to stay in the town and not leave to pursue education that is not what's available in the town. And then the last one I would say is, you know, some of the specific funding grant and program opportunities with the higher levels of government, ensuring that those are well understood and positioned to receive, I think, can be key to enable a lot of the rest that is here.
And just to add from my perspective, we did get lots of insight in terms of what the opportunities are to expand to kind of formalize educational and training programs that well align with the needs of the industry. So I know we talked about some sectors that currently, or some educational occupations that are in demand. And we do recognize the role of organizations or educational institutions like the Northern Lakes College, University of Alberta, and Continuing Education. And we recognize the importance of working collaboratively with them to promote existing programs and ensuring that a collaborative approach is taken to design and update the curriculum to align with what the industry needs, just so the quality of graduates are well aligned with the needs of the industry when it comes. And the other thing to also call out is we do recognize the town has made significant effort towards education. We recognize the Zero Fee Tuition program. That's actually not reflected here because lots of the data we do have is from 2021. We recognize the fact that the Zero Fee Tuition program started off in 2020, and there's been some positive outcome from that, with 58 graduates already accounted for from the program. We do believe that when the next Statistics Canada data comes out, this will be reflected in that data to show what the improvements in education has been. So it's really leveraging some of those kind of initiatives, leveraging the CETC Center and finding opportunities to create new ways to promote both in-person and online learning.
Thank you.
One more question over, Murray Lynn. We had 2 studies done, correct? This was one of them. So we had the industry gap analysis, and then there was, what was the other one?
The education needs assessment, which is combined into this report.
And then this was grant funded, correct? Or partially grant funded?
Partially grant funded, yes.
Okay. Okay. Now I guess for you and your team, I guess, what's the next steps, I guess?
Not really sure at this time. I can check with Conduso, but I think we're looking to adopt this plan into our work. So I think when we come back to council, Conduso plans to
Elaborate a little more. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Unless there's any other questions, go ahead, Emilio.
Thank you. Just curious. There's some acronyms here. On the high-level implementation on talented attraction and retention, I see that there's rural entrepreneur stream, but there's FSTP and MNP. Wonder what they are.
Yes, so those have been defined on previous slides. That's the Federal Skilled Talent Program as well as the Municipal Nominee Program. So you'll see them defined in previous slides, just so we don't have repetitions. That's why we usually define them first and then take them over as acronyms.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I guess lastly, you know, I was expecting a little bit more specifics as well. Just would guide us on what we can do with this report. I was wondering, when you have interactions with the industry, did they have any idea where the specific gaps are in trades, as well as any other? For example, you know, are we short of accountants here, or bookkeepers here, or tradespeople? What kind of gaps do we have, or any such thing that might help us to guide this program forward in the future?
Hello, Zach here. So, to the comment around the level, it doesn't say, it is a high level plan and it does need to be built on, right? And that is the scope of the engagement. And that's how we've approached it collectively. And I think it does set the town up to, in terms of how it's organized, the 6 strategic areas, the partners, there is some specificity in the actions, and I think it will allow as a foundation to move forward. There is an Excel sheet that is provided as well, where these activities are further broken down, and some more detail is provided. But it is at its core, as per the scope of high level. In terms of a breakdown by trade, that was not completed. It was not part of the scope, and so it was not completed.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, unless there's anything else, you got something, Rick? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just echo Councillor Gamana's comment there. I look at this report and it's, you're right, it's high level, but I don't know if there's anything new in here that we haven't kind of kicked around and seen already. Yeah, to me, the specific industry has specific gaps that need to be filled, and this is how we can fill those gaps. That's what I would have liked to have seen. I think it's very high level, and other than telling us to work collaboratively with our neighbors and have joint economic or educational groups working together. I didn't get a lot out of this report, and I'm disappointed that we don't have more specifics and more clear direction from it. It seems to just create more questions that we need answers to. I guess setting us up for a second report, in-depth one. Updated, yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks for those comments. I don't believe we have anything further for you, Zach and Sean, so we can let you go. But thanks for the time, and thanks for the presentation, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from the town of Drayton Valley shortly.
Great. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Shall we take a 5-minute break? We'll take re-adjourn here. Next on the list, we have business arising from delegations. I don't think we really had anything coming out of that other than Kundi's probably going to come at some point to talk a little further on that and in depth and kind of what that means for his department. And we'll kind of leave it at that for now. Anybody have anything else they believe was arising from that? All right. So we'll move along to some decision items we have first on the list here, Community Safety Fund Policy PSO 124, and we have Cody Rossing here to talk about that.
Good morning, everyone. So back in 2022, a report was presented to council about Travis permitting. That is the Transportation Routing and Vehicle Information System. Subsequent to that, there was a $25 permit fee that was enacted as part of the fee schedule as it pertains to commercial vehicles that are obtaining permits. Initially, the funds that were being charged to that were going to a capital infrastructure reserve. However, in early 2023, that was brought to council and it was directed to move that into a community safety fund. So when that was originally presented about the community safety fund, that was intended to be used for various initiatives such as speed sign programs, enhanced crosswalks and lighting, positive tickets, additional CCTV cameras, etc. Now that the funds have been, or since we've been charging since January 2023, the funds have been accumulating. Currently to date, we have just under $50,000 in the community safety fund. We're averaging approximately $12,500 per quarter that we receive from the province as part of these Travis permits. So now that we've got some dollars sitting there, now it's time to start figuring out what are we actually going to be doing with those dollars. So before you today, we have the proposed community safety fund policy. In general terms, it's council is to determine if funds are going to be allocated to the community safety fund by way of the Travis permit fees or additional allocations through the annual budget, such as we're going to be putting $10,000 per year into the safety fund, for an example. Through that, the Community Safety Committee shall implement a plan and approve the intended expenditures for the use of the money in the fund. The General Manager of Protective Services will provide any required reporting to the CAO or Council regarding the use of the funds, and the CAO shall approve or cause to be approved through the applicable purchasing policies and procedures, the expenditures as identified in the Community Safety Committee. So when we look at the Community Safety Committee, it is comprised of different administration levels as it pertains to community safety. So your protective services mainly. We've got the RCMP, we've got Alberta Health Services, and we do have a couple members of council that sit on that committee as well. So there is some council representation in that committee. By approving this policy, there is no financial implications as pertains to the approval of the policy per se. There is no anticipated legal or risk that we're taking on. One thing that we could see though is once we do start implementing or once this policy is in place and we start identifying different projects and priorities to work on, obviously there's capacity issue that may come in. So that will need to be evaluated as part of the Community Safety Committee's making those determinations on what is the priority and what are we moving forward with kind of thing. There is no proposed stakeholder or communication strategy. All intents and purposes, this is kind of an administrative policy kind of thing. So, however, once projects are initiated and start going on in the community, that is something, depending on what it is, that we could be using communications to assist us with getting that messaging out on this is what it's doing in the community, this is what these funds are being used for kind of thing. So, subject to any questions, we are looking for council to approve the community safety fund policy as presented.
All right, thanks, Cody. Do we have any questions around the table? Go ahead, Rick.
So Cody, in the end, you're asking for the committee to independently decide how to spend the funds created by the Travis permit fees, and you'll be asking for additional monies out of the budget as well for that fund?
So we wouldn't be looking for additional dollars to be put in, obviously council, because there is a fund that is set up. Council could determine we want to put an extra X dollars in per year. But I would suggest the main source of revenue for this fund would be through those Travis permitting fees. Yeah.
And the decision on what to spend that on would rest with the committee.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And that committee is comprised of RCMP, fire, yourself, your department, and then two councillors.
Two councillors as well as Alberta Health Services, public health inspector.
Great. So there's council representation. But, any other questions, anybody? Nope. I do have one. Tom, go ahead.
Who are the councillors?
Myself and Bill.
Along with the police committee then?
Yeah, that's the same committee you have. So just real quick, 3.1.3, just the fees and reference to Travis. Do we have a Travis policy or?
We don't have a Travis policy per se. What we do have under the fees and schedules bylaw is the fee of $25 that we're currently charging.
Right. Okay. No, I was just making sure because I guess when I, do stuff like this, I try not to reference I try to reference other policies and such. So you're not having to change it here and there. Just, okay. So thanks for that. Do we have anything from Bill or Nancy online regarding Travis? I think we have Nancy.
Morning, thank you. So just a couple questions and clarity. Just some clarity around there's $49,241 currently sitting in the Community Safety Fund. Is that correct?
Yes, currently we have that $49,000 currently in the fund. The province is a little bit slow to send their money out, but on average from last year, we were looking at 12,500. So if we were to get lucky and the province was to pay us for, I guess, the dollars for this year so far, I'd suggest we're looking at probably around that 68 to 70,000 that could be in there once payments received.
Okay, so we're just waiting on the 2024 additional funds to be added then.
Correct, yeah. And then that is
Okay,
one of those
and then-
things, because they are paid supposed to be paid quarterly, a little bit delayed, but if council does continue with charging for these Travis permit fees, that is one of those things where ongoing, this fund is just going to be replenished through that, the Travis permits.
Okay, and then my question is, will recommendations come from the committees to council about how the money is spent? Or are you asking that the decision be solely made at the Community Safety Committee level?
Yeah, so currently how the policy is worded is it would be up to the Community Safety Committee to implement a plan and start essentially acting on that plan. Again, keeping in mind, we do have representation from 2 members of council on there. And at any time, council can suggest additional priorities and stuff like that that goes in. Just because the Community Safety Committee creates the initial plan of what we want to roll out. Obviously, things can change. There's different priorities that come up. So that can easily be adjusted as time goes on. And that would be, for example, if Councillor Evans wanted to do a bunch of speed signs, for example, he can talk with his colleagues on the Community Safety Committee, bring that forward. We have those meetings monthly. And then that can be, how can we work that into the plan moving forward kind of thing.
Thank you for that. I guess my only question around that would be, if those decisions are being made at the Community Safety Committee and it's not coming as a recommendation, would the same ask be from other, I guess, internal committees that we sit on, that those type of decisions are being made there? I guess that would be my question.
I don't have a specific answer on that. What I would suggest is, due to this policy being in place, it at least governs the Community Safety Committee as it pertains to the funds. If there is a different committee out there with different funds, I would suggest it's probably depending on what kind of policies and stuff they have in place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Jumana.
Thank you. My question is somewhat similar. I think when we look at the other committees that we have, we usually allocate funds for, say, the committee that we are in for sustainability. But then we usually have to come back to the council and get the approval for the projects that been approved by the committee itself. And that's how the other committees function as well. I think it's your suggestion here is different than what we do on the other committees. So would it be a big change if we go back to the way that we are doing the other committees?
We have the ability, like the policy is not approved, and it's obviously up to council to approve the policy how they would like it. One thing, as we start moving forward, is depending on the different priorities out there. For example, if we're moving forward with a positive ticketing program that enforcement services and the RCMP can do kind of thing, here's your $10 gift card for wearing your helmet, for example. If we're coming to council regularly on, hey, can we get another $200 for this? Can we get another $200 for that? That is quite cumbersome on administration and council, and it kind of starts bogging everyone down with a lot of that lower monetary value, I guess. For bigger projects, though, obviously that could make a little bit more sense. One of the things that we have been talking about is possibly a transportation master plan. Well, that's a big chunk of change to do something like that, right? So maybe that's not something that the Community Safety Committee is comfortable making. Again, keeping in mind, we do have the expertise of the sitting council members on that committee on if they're like, I don't think my fellow council members are going to be supportive of this kind of thing, then again, maybe we evaluate. And if there is one of those kind of I don't know, contentious or bigger price items or something like that. I don't know the proper word you want to use on that one, but maybe we do bring back some of those ones to council for their input.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, ultimately, that's what we're voting on today is whether to, I guess, allow the committee to work independently of council and allocate funds. You're right. Every other committee comes to council, says, this is what we're looking at. You okay with us spending the money? Yeah, not sure how I feel about that, to be honest with you. Not that, you know, it's a trust issue by any means, just the structure of the committees is set up. So council is always kind of in the loop. You know, I don't know if we consider a monetary value, like you say, I don't think anybody on council is going to have a problem with you guys spending a couple of $100 to go try and work with folks in the community to wear bike helmets, stuff like that. I don't think that's going to be an ask that anybody's going to have a problem with. But again, the idea of the committees is to kind of have that connection to council, and then the back and forth exchange of information and the spending of dollars. And again, I'm not sure if I have a real problem with that or not, but that's ultimately the change we're looking at. I do have one question on, you know, you gave some examples of what you might fund, and emergency management, enforcement services, and fire services training and tabletop exercises. I would think that those particular things would be within the emergency services general budget. To me, this isn't something that the Travis money should be funding. I think that's probably covered in our budget every fall in Tom's budget. I guess that's the only thing that kind of popped out to me as being a little on the outside there. And yeah, I guess that's my only comment. That's what we got to decide here, whether to free up the reins for them to make those decisions as a committee and go ahead and spend that money without a conversation with council.
I guess part of that too is there are things built in on the GM of protective services would be required to provide any reporting to council as they need on it, right? Again, we do have council's members that are sitting on the committee that have input. It would have to be voted at that committee on what are we actually moving forward with. With your comment regarding the training, again, your normal operating budget should capture most of that kind of stuff, right? Something like this that might come up. It's one of those mid-year things where it's kind of out of scope, and part of the community safety committee wants to implement a plan, but we need internal staff to figure out they need that training for that plan kind of thing, right? So are we pulling out of our operating budget, which we weren't really originally anticipating some of those costs kind of thing? Or can we now use some of these dollars to go on a conference on whatever it is so that we can implement that kind of thing, right? Good example is there's different community safety plans, I believe they're called out there. You can get a consultant to do everything, or you can get administration to do some of it in collaboration with the consultant. But if administration doesn't have that kind of expertise on what are we exactly looking for, can we use some of those dollars to send one or two staff members on some applicable training to be able to help, so that we're not having to do the full costs with the consultants to do that kind of work kind of thing. So.
Okay, I will go Councillor Sheriffs and then Mayor Nancy Dodds. I think she has her hand up still.
So I understand what Councillor Gamana and Evans are saying, but also there's a lot of internal committees that, like Cody said, the committee votes on the spending. Like, not the committees usually don't come to us with every single way they're spending their money that they've accumulated. Like, you know, Drayton Valley Hospitality and Tourism, they have their own money and spending, and they don't come to us with every every time they want to put money into something. So I see what you're saying, that it maybe should come to council for approval, but also it is being voted at the committee level where the money should go. So I don't really
I
have a
think
problem
another,
with.
yeah, I think another thing too, and I'm not sure how these other committees exactly are working, but one thing is it's not a tax supported fund as well, I guess, right? So it's not affecting our tax base per se. It's affecting a fund that is set through permitting fees kind of thing. So I don't know if that kind of changes things a little bit, but that is something to keep in mind.
That's kind of where I was going. And like, the library board doesn't always come to us and say, well, we're going to buy 100 extra books. Do you guys agree with it? Well, it's the committee's money. The committee votes on it and they decide it. And I'm sure if it's something like new set of lights or something that the town should have a say in, it would come to council. But when it's, $10 gift cards for kids that wear helmets, I don't think that should necessarily come to council every time that decision is made at the committee level.
We'll go to Nancy online.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, just listening to the comments, I think that the more I listen to everyone's comments, the more I'm maybe against this. And the reason being is that this is an internal committee. Yeah, I do see it different as external committees, as Councillor Sharris had mentioned, like the library or Drayton Valley Community Foundation. Those are external budgets. They're not internal to the town of Drayton Valley. So those I can see us not having a say of how that's spending, but these are dollars in revenue that are directly coming to the town. So I think as an internal committee, I just question as to why we would be making an exception to this committee to spend, these type of funds. It's not just a few $100s. The revenue coming to the or from the Travis permitting, could get quite extensive. I think Cody had mentioned up over $60,000 once those funds are deposited this year. So that's quite an extensive amount of money that the committee has the say. I would rather see it come as a recommendation of how those funds are spent from the committee, as I think initially when we set up this this permitting system, it was as additional revenue to the town is the way that we looked at it. And of course, going to things like safety and enhanced crosswalks and things like that. I do trust that the committee will be going in that direction, but I guess I question, as having an internal committee, we've established a terms of reference for all of these. And there are budgets that are assigned, like Councillor Gamana had said, with the sustainability. And now we're just giving the power to this committee to spend as they please. So I'd like to still see it come as a recommendation. Thank you.
Just to clarify that the motion of council for this specific fund does read that all these funds are going into a reserve for community safety purposes. So that's already decided. This is just about when and where and between the community safety things. So just to clarify, the motion reads that Travis funds are to be put into a reserve for these types of things. We just said the motion just says community safety, I believe. Community safety fund. And so, yeah, this is about how to decide. There's a couple of things that we could do, an amount about how much they can spend, or have it work as a different reserve where projects get recommended by the committee and it just goes through the regular budgeting process. But I think the purpose, Cody can correct me if I'm wrong, is just to have a little bit more flexibility throughout the year for projects, but that is ultimately up to council. We can accept the report as information this time and with recommended changes, or we can put the amount in there, like a specific thing saying that the committee can spend up to this amount without approval. So I guess my recommendation maybe would be just to bring it back at another council meeting, but yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I agree with what Mayor Dodd said. You know, we have council meetings every 2 weeks. I think there's not too long a wait after the committee meets that we would hold up any spending of funds, and there's not really a scenario where I think council is probably going to deny the ability to spend the funds. I think it's simply the idea that it is an internal committee. Those are revenues that come into the town, even though they aren't tax based. And I'm not sure it's a good idea to start changing the structure of the internal committees to have them totally independent of council, except for if they spend more than $10,000 or something. I'm not sure we're putting a lot of roadblocks in the way of the committee doing their work by expecting them to come and say, okay, we're going to spend $1,000 on this and 2,000 on this and 3,000 on this. This committee, does council support that? And you'll get a yay. I'm sure, go for it. I mean, it's good work the committee is doing, and it's worthwhile what you're looking at spending the money on. I just not sure whether we should be changing that whole structure of the reporting requirements for the committee and running things by council first before the money's spent. Thank you.
So in the responsibilities, number 3, the very last one, 3.5, at the end, it says that the Community Safety Committee shall implement a plan and approve intended expenditures for the use of the money in the fund. The General Manager of Protective Services will provide any required reporting to the CAO and Council regarding the use of the funds, and the CAO shall approve or cause to be approved through applicable purchasing policies and procedures. So in most cases, it will come to either CAO or Council for approval.
Yeah, like essentially the committee we're going to do these 2 projects. It's going to cost $5,000, right? And then we've already got internal policies and procedures on different administration levels that can approve monies and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, though, we do have it where the CAO will review and approve any, approve or cause to be approved funding requests as directed by the committee. So ultimately, the committee could technically say we are going to spend $1,000 on crosswalk lights. It's not 1,000, but and then that needs to go to CAO for the final yes or no kind of thing, right? Again, CAO has more day-to-day understandings of council as well, and where they're kind of feeling with different things as it pertains to different safety initiatives and stuff like that, right? So it's not Councillor Clark is on the committee and he's signing the check kind of thing, right? It's kind of the committee, this is what we want to do. This is what we voted on. Ultimately up the chain to get approval by administration, senior administration, on a yes or no, right? So there's still some internal checks and balances, I guess, on that as well, if that is a concern.
Good.
So you're following the purchasing policies in place, and you'll be treated like a division of the town. You'll be doing the same thing as parks or public works. You need to follow these purchasing procedures over certain amounts. The guidelines state this is what's required. CAO signs off on it. Or if it's below that, you have the ability to spend that money without pre-approval, is the bottom line.
Yeah, like it'd be the purchasing and tendering policy that we'd be kind of following in line with when it comes to those dollar figures kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
and again, you know, that's the crux of the question here. Are we changing the structure and the accountability of one committee? Yeah. We got to decide.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I hate to put you on the spot, Chief Thompson, but I assume that at the fire department, you spend money and you follow all the policies, and if you need pizza, you get pizza. We don't, I don't want to hear about it here either. I think I'm of the same mind that I don't think that this is such a different committee. I get what everyone is saying about, but the cumbersome sort of opportunity to come and say, well, we got some pizza and then we got helmets. You know, I just think that gets a little bit too weighty, and I don't think it's necessary. If you're following the rules, then do follow the rules. And I don't need to know. I just think do the job and do it well. And I would say that my interactions with the CAO, he's of the same mind. So I'm thinking to myself, let's just accept this report, and if it gets weird, then we revisit.
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, just one comment is just that. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if we're going and buying, $10 gift certificates, why do we need to bring that to council? I think that is cumbersome for sure. So, I mean, I'm in favor of looking at maybe a dollar value that, maybe comes to council. Is it 5,000? Is it 1,000? I don't know. But if it's, there's two councilors there, and if something is going to be, politically agitating, then, I mean, those councilors, I think, are wise enough to bring that to their attention too, right? So, I don't know. I'd be in favor of a cap. Yeah. Go ahead, Emil.
Sorry, I was just wondering, if that's the direction that we would like to go, would we consider that for the rest of the internal committees as well, right? That's my, I don't know, my issue there or concern there, right? That's just, we have that policy on internal committees, and, if that's the case, I'm okay with that as well, right? Just then let's treat all the committees the same.
Just to add to that comment, I guess the difference is that the other committees would be, like, there's not money coming in, revenue coming in to the other committees. That's not tax-based. What committee is money coming in from? Sorry, so this one, council's already decided on this revenue and its purpose. That, I guess that's the difference, is that money's already there, allocated to this type of spending as it sits, so it's not, so that's what makes it different. I do get that, though, that it's not that the fact that there's money to be spent so much as the process of bringing things from a committee level to council.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my last thought there is, I'd rather not spend more money sitting around talking about it than the actual decision, right? If it's $1,000 item and we're sitting around here and spending $2,000 to talk about it, then does that even make sense, right? So that's my last comment. Did you have a comment, or?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't necessarily agree that we'd be spending $2,000 to approve a $1,000 item that Tom may bring forward and say, okay, we want to provide bike helmets for 40 kids or something. I think that'd be a quick yay right there. And again, I don't want to, I'm not too hung up on approving this process. I just think that, we need to be cognizant of the fact that, we have a structure in place for these internal committees, and we're straying away from that structure here. And this is probably all that we'll see, I guess, as far as, the request for more independence and to be able to manage the funds that come in themselves. But ultimately, it's a revenue that comes into the town that ultimately we're responsible for as a council. Again, I also realize it's fairly small amounts. So I guess maybe I would feel better if, yeah, we put a dollar amount in there. The committee can spend up to whatever that is, $2,000, $4,000 without approval from council. If it's above that, then it would take a quick report by Tom and an approval by council. And again, I don't think that's too big an ask. I think you'll find a council meeting fairly quickly after a committee meeting when you've made that decision. So I guess those are my final thoughts. I'd support it with a cap on there.
Okay. And then Nancy has her hand up. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Evans. I think that if there was an amount in there, then I could get behind it. I guess the only thing that I still question or raises a bit of concern with me is that we're going outside of the terms of reference that was assigned to this committee. So I just wonder if bringing the Community Safety Fund policy ahead rather than bringing, I guess, the terms of reference to change that isn't a bit backwards. So I guess, we have an organizational meeting coming up in October, and that's typically when we would review things like the terms of references and all of our internal committees and things like that. So I just think for me, it's just the timing, and it just doesn't seem like it aligns with what we should typically be doing. So my recommendation or my suggestion would be that if we're going to move towards the amount of the $2,000 or putting a cap on it, that, we just get clarity on if maybe perhaps the terms of reference shouldn't have come before the Community Safety Fund policy, and whether we want to wait until the organizational meetings in October to make these changes would be my suggestion. Thanks.
Go ahead, Noah.
Thank you. No, I would be comfortable with dollar value as well. I should be able to get behind it. It's just that if that's the way, then when we go on discussion about the next organizational meeting, then we should discuss doing that for the rest of the councils, committees as well. Then have that leeway for all the internal committees where there's a little bit of independence that you could use some of the money that's allocated there.
I would agree. And this might be a good little test. See if it works, and if it doesn't, or if it's, like you said, weird, then maybe we just don't do it. So yeah, I agree. So I think, Tom, you're prepared to make a motion?
Deputy Mayor Clark, and I'm going to make the motion and the recommendation that's before us without the price cap. Because setting 1,000 or 2,000 it's redundant to me. I think the committee will do what it needs to do. So the motion reads that council approves Community Safety Fund Policy PSO 124 as presented in report AIR 24 IDS
105. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any questions, comments, or debate on the motion? Go ahead, Monica.
I'll just add a comment that I will be voting in favor simply because this committee is collecting this money not from taxpayers. It's a little bit different, like Elvira said. That is the reason I'm in favor of.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, it isn't tax money, but it is revenue that comes in, the same as a user fee in any of our our facilities as well. So yeah, it may not be a tax, but it is a revenue that we're responsible for.
I just simply trust the committee that in their decision making, they will follow the procedures and they will ask for approval from CAO or council as it is stated in 3.5. And if it's all being followed, then I don't see an issue with going ahead with it.
All right, any questions or comments from the floor, from administration? Okay. What's that? Questioning the motion. All right. Let's vote. All in favor? Looks like Bill and Nancy are nays.
Not in favor.
Okay. Are you there, Bill?
I'm opposed.
Sorry, Bill, didn't catch that.
Opposed.
Okay. So we have 3 in favor, 4 opposed. That motion is defeated. Yeah. Okay. All in favor. Yeah. And then all opposed. We have. Yeah. So Bill and Nancy both opposed. Rick and Mila both opposed. And we aren't recording this vote. So. All right. That is defeated. So I guess we leave it as is. And start another motion.
So typically the motion is on the floor, so it was defeated, so you would move to 9.2. There could be a recommendation coming out that it could be brought to an organizational meeting in the fall.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we will bring these back in a future date, prior to the organizational meeting or after the organizational meeting, or during the organizational meeting. What would be the best? During the organizational meeting for discussion. Thank you.
All righty. That's a motion, sorry? Yep. Okay. All in favor? Or sorry, any questions, comments, or debate on the motion?
Just for some clarity there, you want this policy to be brought back during the organizational meeting for discussion, or?
And then just for further clarity, maybe, do you want all terms of reference brought back to consider this as well?
I believe so, because we will be doing that anyways. Usually we do that during the organizational.
Right. So rather than being specific to this one, it's more of a review of all terms of reference during the org meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
Thank you. You're testing my memory now. I would like to make a motion that we bring all the terms of references of internal committees, including this one, for review during our organizational meeting on October. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Can we assume that this group can now go forward in the summertime when you wear bicycle helmets and when you need pizza, that they can go ahead and do that? Or are we assuming now that when they make a decision to do something, it has to come back to council? Is that the assumption?
Well, I think that's the way it would be now, right? So
Okay.
I think that this policy would have been in place to sort of deviate from that.
Okay, so follow the policy.
Follow as is, yeah. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is that clear to everybody online, Nancy and Bill?
Thank you.
Okay. Any last questions, comments, or debate on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor?
In favor.
Okay, thank you, Bill and Nancy, both in favor, and that is carried. All right, so we'll move along to 9.2. We have CCTV video surveillance policy PS 0224, and that is Cody Rossing here to present this.
Yes, thank you very much. So here to talk about the CCTV video surveillance policy. So in budget 2023, council approved to move forward with CCTV cameras in public areas as well as at the CTC. Since then, administration has been working to implement a camera project, and the need for a policy which clearly defines roles, responsibilities, and limitations is required. So by having a singular policy for both town facilities as well as for public areas will reduce confusion and streamline processes for administration. The proposed policy has been reviewed by various departments within administration, including protective services, communications, and community and recreation. Some key points of the policy include the requirements of signage in and around the areas being monitored, one software system for all cameras being installed by the town of Drayton Valley moving forward, a 14-day retention period on video, no 24/7 active monitoring on cameras, limited access to staff ensuring privacy is protected as much as possible, the requirements for confidentiality agreements for contractors who may be required to access the data, such as for like IT fixing and stuff like that. Town staff already have that through their employment and requirements. The process for disclosing data, access log for staff viewing recorded data and an audit method, the requirement for individual user accounts to track access on the system, and the ability to create procedures. So previously in 2019, the town entered into approximately a 6-month pilot project with a business for cameras in public areas. That has helped assist in shaping this policy and the program moving forward. So as this policy and the CCTV program is rolled out, additional amendments to the policy may be required. Quite honestly, I'm probably expecting to be back here once the camera project starts getting rolled out to kind of just define it, clear it up a little bit more. So if this policy is passed today, anticipate it's probably going to come back within the next year with some fine tuning kind of thing. Some financial implications, not expecting any for the implementation of this policy. However, there's going to be operational costs and future capital purchase costs if there's going to be operational just for the maintaining the cameras, but if there is any requirements to add on to the system, then there will be financial implications to that. By implementing this policy, it does reduce our legal and risk and ensures that we are in compliance with various privacy legislation, both provincial and federal. There's no anticipated organizational implications. There is some possible service level implications as it pertains to possible FOIP requests for the public trying to access data. Not sure if we're going to see an increase in people trying to get the video or not, but if they do, obviously that might be a bit of an increase to administration. That doesn't per se come so much with policy, it just comes in general with the new program. There's no stakeholder communication strategy plan for the implementation of the policy. Internally, administration will work together to ensure all impacted staff are aware of the new policy and their requirements. However, as the cameras are being installed within the community, the town will have required signage in and near the locations of the cameras as identified in the policy. Additional messaging will go out into the community via social media and local media regarding cameras in public areas. So if the policy is approved, then we're one step closer to being able to go live with the CCTV camera project as approved in budget 2023. I'm cautious to say this, but it is anticipated that the cameras are going to be being installed this month or within the next month. So the motion that we are looking for today is that council approve the CCTV video surveillance policy as presented, subject to any questions.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have any questions or comments for Mr. Elsing? Go ahead.
Cody, I can't remember. Were you here in 2019 when we were having those broad discussions?
No, I was not.
The reason I say that and ask that is that it was really cumbersome and it was really problematic. And I think it was more to do, with the protected areas and the privacy and all of the FOIPs and all of the things that, and it became so problematic that we didn't do anything about it. And now by putting a policy in place, we can just go ahead and do it. And the second part of my question is we noticed that the RCMP in their footage in the Free Press, they're asking if you have a camera at your house, you could put it on, a stream or whatever, and people could come and use it. And I think they're getting a pretty good uptick on that. This has got nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with putting a camera in a park.
This policy is twofold. So the projects that came to council for budget 2023, one was for cameras in public areas. So your parks, your dog park, your Omniplex parking lot, the Rotary Park, those are identified areas already. But then the second part of it is we currently don't have a policy in place for our municipal facilities. So this kind of encompasses that to kind of close that privacy loop as well. So but part of budget 2023 was the addition of cameras at the CTC as well. So this is kind of just one, getting us in line with our current cameras that we have, but more importantly, kind of as the budget or as the projects that were approved in the budget start rolling out. This is to make sure that moving forward, we have a proper policy in place so that we're not running into privacy issues with privacy commissioner offices and legislation.
So effectively, we can actually do this.
Yeah, we can. There's limitations that are in place. Part of what we're going to be doing is we're not going to be having 24/7 monitoring. It's going to be triggered by motion detection. So again, it's going to be reducing some of that stuff. There's a 14-day period on how long we're recording the data. So it's not going to be stored for a long period of time. As soon as that 14 days is up, that video is gone. There is no way to retrieve it. We're very selective on administration that has access to the video. So when I look at the policy that was in place with the previous project in 2019, there was pretty broad. There's quite a few staff members that were allowed to access it. This is getting very restrictive. So again, if there is a concern that gets brought forward to the privacy commissioner's office, hopefully when they come and do their investigation and audit, we're in compliance because we are pretty, in my view, we're getting pretty tight on who has access. If you're accessing it, you have to complete a document on why you're accessing it. If you want the video, you got to go through the proper steps to get it, kind of thing, right? So trying to keep us protected as possible while still being able to implement this program successfully, because what we don't want to do is implement this program and then we run into issues and they come down and yank all these cameras out and we just wasted a bunch of money, kind of thing, right? So
Okay, yep, we've come to the crutch of my comments. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, actually, access was my question. Access to viewing live data in municipal buildings and properties is restricted to the chief administrative officer and the manager of information services, and the manager of facilities. And then, but access to live data in public areas is accessible to peace officers and bylaw officers. I'm not sure why would they not, or you, have access to live data in municipal buildings if there was an issue within that building? I guess I'm just trying to understand why the different assignments. I understand you're controlling it. They need to, there's a process to get access to it, but yeah, if you can explain that.
yeah, so again, the big thing is we're trying not to give access to people that don't need it, right? So on a normal day-to-day operations per se, do myself or my staff need to be able to access what are we live viewing on the cameras within our municipal facilities? From a risk management level, very limited on when that might be needed. So not saying that I don't trust the staff that we're hiring in the enforcement branch, but what I don't want is I don't want people to be abusing it, kind of thing, right? So we've got good staff right now. Maybe I go rogue one day and I just decide I want to start watching all the video that's being shown at the Civic Center, kind of thing, right? So we're really trying to limit who's got access. Again, for current state affairs, again, is long-term, while making sure that if the privacy commissioner's office does come in, they're not, the less questions from them, the better, kind of thing, right? So the
Yeah,
more,
don't give them a reason.
So, this way, again, like if we were to try and justify to them today, why do your enforcement staff need access to live viewing in the town facilities? I wouldn't have a good answer for them, right? I might be able to think of one if I had a little bit of time, but if it was a quick phone call or they showed up on the door, why do you need it? I don't have an answer for them. And that means probably because I probably don't need that live viewing of that. Now, if there was something we're investigating or an incident that came through, we still have the ability to fill out the form, get it properly. If it's within that 14 days, we can still use that for an investigation. Same thing, RCMP can access that video as part of their investigation as well if they're filling out the proper forms. And then that way we're staying in compliance with privacy legislation.
Okay, fair enough. I just pictured something like you got a call from the Omniplex and we've got 3 homeless people kind of wandering around in here. Maybe you'd want to log in there to see, but your explanation makes sense. I guess more restrictive is better than obviously less restrictive. Yeah, so
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Emil.
Thank you. I guess when you When you go to like the Trilacious Center in Leduc or some of the facilities in Edmonton, they already have this kind of surveillance, if I'm not mistaken. My question is, Cody, how let's say RCMP wants to access a certain time, or community member, do they have a form that they can fill, and you review whether that request is appropriate and continue with that, or is it just
Yeah, so it'd be accessing town data, which would mean that they'd have to fill out a FOIP request form. It's I think, 2-pager, fill in the blanks. That's pretty self-explanatory. That would then go to, I believe, to Nancy with records that would facilitate that FOIP request. And then through the FOIP request would be able to determine what video is being released or not, kind of thing, with the guidelines from FOIP legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I can make a motion if there's no questions.
Good. We have Nancy with her hand up. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you. Okay, so just a question or just a clarity here. So this was approved in budget 2023. Is this the operating, I guess, proposal that we approved $6,000? Is this the right one? $6,000 was approved for the additional cameras?
If I recall, the $6,000 was part of budget 2024 for the Omniplex. This is going back into budget 2023, a little bit delayed, but it is for the public cameras. Is I think that was 86,500, and then the CTC, which was 17,000.
Okay, yeah, because I was just looking at that one and it said, yeah, the MCC, the Omniplex, and then the 3 floors of the gym. So this is the one going back to 2023 that talks about the parks and the public and things like that. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, and then I'm not familiar with the 2023 one. I don't have it in front of me right now. But the 2024 one, when it talks about the ongoing operational costs, it says that there's none there. So I guess my concern or question is, in speaking to the 2023 one, since I don't have it in front of me, what would be the expected operational costs? And I guess I ask that because when we did the pilot project with TELUS quite a few years ago, and it was a pilot, so we didn't have those costs, but when we went to continue them, they were quite high. So what are our expectations of the operational costs now with these additions to the public spaces?
Yeah, unfortunately, that was part of the budget 2023 request. Was we weren't sure what the operating costs were going to be. We still don't know because we're not live. What we do know is when we look at the previous project that was brought forward in part of some recent conversations, is they used 1 gigabyte fiber line to run their cameras, which is a lot more than what we need to provide the services. So, for example, they wanted to charge, I can't remember the exact numbers, but per camera, they wanted to charge approximately $240, I believe it was, per month per camera, where we can get those a lot cheaper, just using different methods and not a fiber line kind of thing, right? So we still don't have an actual dollar figure in place for the actual operating costs that are going to go forward. One of the things that we are doing is making sure that at least with this budget 2023, we do have a little bit, once the cameras do go live, we do have some dollars in the budget left over to get us through 2024 to operate, but that will be something that goes into budget 2025 and beyond, is that line item as it pertains to the ongoing operational costs for the CCTV camera projects. Again, keeping in mind though, this is the policy that kind of keeps us in place for the cameras that we do have in place, and then as we move forward, ensuring that we do have policy for those cameras that are getting installed.
Okay, I guess, so my question would be, when it talks about financial implications, if we were to go ahead, like it says, there will be ongoing operational costs and any future capital purchase costs to additional cameras. So if we go ahead and approve this policy today, and then we find out that the operational costs are, let's just say they're $5,000, $10,000 a month, do we have the ability then, I guess, to make that decision at the time, or what would you recommend? Maybe this is more Alvira question. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is simply policy guiding what we can and can't do in terms of the cameras we already have. So this policy doesn't trigger a cost. If council wanted to relook at the camera projects going out to the public, that'd be a conversation, that's a different conversation. This is also addressing cameras we already have in place, as you know, at the pool, at the Omniplex, putting some in, I think, here at the Civic Center. So this guides just so that we're in line. So this policy doesn't trigger the cost, it's whether or not we have cameras. So that's a different conversation, I guess, for a different B. If council does not, like, yeah, that's just, it's a project that was approved previously. This is just making sure that we are operating within our abilities in terms of having access to this kind of information from not only our staff, but also the public, from existing cameras and cameras going forward. So it's kind of twofold, like Cody said. But this policy, it doesn't, if we didn't have this policy, the cameras are still going forward because that's a project that was approved. It just means now we don't have guidelines around it, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it does. And this policy covers both, I guess, the 2023 and the 2024 CTVC cameras and the areas.
Yeah, and ones we've had previously, like we've had cameras at certain locations for longer than that as well. So all cameras and video footage, this will guide.
Over to Rick, go ahead.
I'm ready to make a motion.
I just had one quick question before you do that. So we own these cameras then, and all the hardware and everything, and is it a third-party software that we're using? Or I guess I'm just kind of trying to understand what those ongoing costs would be. I mean, of course, if something breaks, you replace it and those sorts of things, but is there a monthly subscription or anything like that?
Yeah, so from the actual camera project perspective, not the policy perspective, we have the cameras, the hardware, all that kind of stuff that is being purchased through the budget program. But we will have the ongoing costs for the software that we're using. It is third party. And then as well for the data that's being used kind of thing to transfer the image from the camera onto the software kind of thing. So.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to make a motion? Go ahead, Rick.
I'll make the motion that approves the CCTV video surveillance and all what's
All right, motion is on the floor. Do we have any questions, comments, or debate on the motion?
Never heard the motion.
I never heard it either.
Oh.
I apologize, folks. I thought I had my mic on there. I'll redo it. The motion is that council approves the CCTV video surveillance policy PS-02-24 as presented in AIR-24-146. Thank you.
All right, a motion has been made. Are there any questions, comments, or debate on the motion? All right, I'll ask all in favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Okay, none opposed, so that is carried. CCTV video surveillance policy. All right. Do we want to take a quick 5 here before we get into? Yes, let's take a quick, let's take 5 minutes here and let Peter get set up. Right, we will reconvene here. We have the Municipal Development Plan and Land Use Bylaw Refresh update from Mr. Peter Vanna. Go ahead.
Morning, Council. I thought it'd be timely to bring forward a report to Council to give you an update on where we're at with the Municipal Development Plan and Land Use Bylaw Refresh. It's probably been a number of months since last was here. And so we're sort of making headway on the two documents, and so it'd be good to kind of recap where we're at and where we're headed. So to to quickly kind of go over the scope and the process that why we started this in the first place. We've got two existing documents, municipal development plan, land use bylaw. Both documents are, I'll say, need work and are out of date, and they need to have clarity and consistency among the documents. They need to be updated and made current. They need to be made user-friendly so that anybody looking at them can understand what's in the document and what's being said. And we need to engage with our public when it comes to updating both of those documents. In terms of the process, so as council is aware, we started this, we've engaged with the public, we've gotten some feedback. We've crafted the documents, the two documents. Municipal development plan is a little further ahead than the land use bylaw. Municipal development plan is done now in terms of a draft document. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll get that to council, and we'll begin the next phase of the process, which is then engaging the public and so forth. On the land use bylaw side, a rough draft is done of the land use bylaw, but it still needs some work to kind of go over and make sure that it's then ready for council and the public to review. Once going forward, we may end up splitting the two documents apart and adopting, going forward with the municipal development plan first to get it adopted. And then the land use bylaw may be a month or two behind it for a number of reasons. One, it's taking a little longer to do it because it's a much more detailed document. And secondly, we want to make sure that it's ground proofed so that you know, what's on the ground reflects what the zoning really is, and that staff have a chance to kind of work with it to make sure that what's in the document is going to work. So it's important that we ground proof it. In terms of the engagement that we've done to this point, as council is aware, we've set up a web portal where all the documentation is on that web portal, and all the information is there. When the draft documents are ready, then we will put that on the portal, and that'll probably be in the next couple of weeks that the municipal development plan will be there. We did engagement with council, administration, and the public in the fall. In the spring, we did additional engagement with the Youth Advisory Council to get their feedback and input on the municipal development plan. And then going forward, we'll do additional open houses, engagement, update the portal, do social media, newspapers, etc., for additional open house drop-in sessions. On the municipal development plan, just to sort of give you an idea, and the intent here is just to kind of give you an overview of it. What I want to do is probably within a month to have a bit of a workshop with council on the municipal development plan so that we can get into a little more detail, and so that you understand what's in the document and how the policies work. But the structure in general is that, you know, it gives you a background and context of the community and our population, our expected growth, and so forth. It has a vision statement in it. That vision statement has been crafted as a result of the input that we have received over time. It also has a new revised community sustainability, or in this particular case, it's being called community resilience section in it that breaks down in terms of community, culture, economy, environment, and governance. Then it has a generalized land use development concept that talks about the different land uses and policies related to those land uses. And then it talks about and it has a more enhanced implementation section in the land use or in the municipal development plan that actually kind of outlines the different areas where you need to incorporate the municipal development plan in order to actually implement it. In terms of the policy areas, so one of the things about this particular document is that it's not we haven't sort of, blown it up and started from scratch. We have an existing municipal development plan. One of the challenges has been, how do you refresh the document given its current state? So, taking what's in there right now and having some consistency as you go through. So some of that has been a challenge in terms of just the topic areas, in terms of the mapping, in terms of some of the accuracy. And so it's, we've tried to do as best we can to sort of keep that consistency there. So the headings that you see on the screen are those that are in the existing municipal development plan. But the policies have been tweaked to make them a policy. Some of them weren't policies. Make them more readable, make them more updated, give some clarity in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And then, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the community resiliency, to sort of give that a framework and put that into a context of, it's not just about community sustainability, because people kind of say, well, what does sustainability really mean? In a large case, in our particular case, it's about, how do we create a resilient community that is able to withstand the pressures that come at it from, whether we're losing population or gaining population, whether we're having new industry move in or not move in, and those different conditions that affect a community. So it's trying to put it into that kind of a context. And then, as I mentioned, the implementation section in the plan is a little more robust in the sense that, it's not something that sits on a shelf. The municipal development plan is something that needs to be incorporated into the day-to-day operations of the municipality. So, for example, when you're doing, your priority setting, when you're doing your budgeting, it needs to fall in line with that, or link to that. You need to be able to monitor it and review it, and to see, are we sort of meeting this? What are some of the benchmarks, or what are the key performance indicators that are in the plan to tell you if you're on track or you're not on track? And then in terms of relating to other documents, such as your intermunicipal development plan and your statutory plans, making sure that those align and are updated to make sure that they fall in line with the municipal development plan. And then in terms of community partnerships, understanding what does that mean, and how do the community members and groups that you deal with and organizations that you deal with help you to implement the plan. And then finally, the link between the land use bylaw and the municipal development plan. So the land use bylaw is just one of the main, but it is the main way that you actually implement over time your municipal development plan. So it's important that there's that consistency. In terms of the land use bylaw, as I mentioned, we're a little further behind only because it's a more complicated document, and to bring it up to current standards and looking at regulations and specific use regulations in particular, it's taken a little bit more time to do that. So in terms of the structure, it follows a similar structure that most land use bylaws have, as well as sort of the existing one. Who are the approving authorities related to the bylaw? What are the different land use districts that you have? What are the specific? So in this particular case, there's general and specific parameters around particular uses. So I'll give you an example, a car wash, right? So car wash, there may be some more specific, like queuing aisles and how it relates to next to residential and those type of things, right? So there'd be some specific regulations dealing with specific land uses that need those specific regulations. And then there's general regulations that apply to all districts and all uses. Then we talk about different processes, so the development process and the subdivision process, the administration of it. And the other last thing is a glossary of terms or definitions section that will be a lot more enhanced than the current one. Because the current bylaw they don't have a lot of definitions in the current bylaw. Or they're inconsistent. So it may define something that's actually not used in the bylaw as an example. So that's one of the things that we're making sure that it's all there. So what are the next steps? So we're finishing up, and as the time I did this slide deck, the municipal development plan wasn't quite done, but it is now, a draft is done. That'll be provided to council, and over the next couple of weeks, we'll put it on our portal, and we'll begin the process of setting a time when we're going to have an open house with the public, and meet with any other groups that need to be met with in order to get their feedback on the plan. Then we'll go through that feedback process, and we'll take that feedback, we'll finalize the document, and bring it to council. So we're sort of shooting for, if we have the open houses open up for the first open house in probably late July, early August, sometime in that time frame. The municipal development plan should come to council for first reading probably around probably September for first reading, after which time then there's a formal circulation process that needs to happen to get it out to agencies and to the county and so forth. And then, as I say, the land use bylaw is a little further behind on that, so it'll probably be another couple of months behind that timeline, and then the adoption process. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on where we're at to this point.
All right, go around the table. Do we have any questions for Mr. Vanna? Go ahead, Councillor McGee.
Good morning, Peter. Thank you. Let me start off with the first question. The V3 group of companies, who is that?
So V3 Companies is the consulting firm that we're using to help us craft the document.
And they're situated?
They're in Edmonton.
In Edmonton.
Well, Sherwood Park, actually.
Yeah, okay. So we're using them as a consultant, or you're using them, or when you say we were? So
I'm the project manager looking after and proofing it and making sure that it's reading properly and that sections make sense. And they're the ones that are actually, putting it all together and getting the drafts to me, and we're proofing the drafts and so forth.
Okay, good. And you described the fact that the MDP it's a live document. So it changes continually. And I know in the last couple of years, we've come across some very interesting situations in the community where that should have been zoned that, but it's not that. And what it does is it becomes really cumbersome for the person that's saying, gee, who knew? And so, well, by the way, it's going to take you 5 to 6 weeks to get this through. Is there any flexibility, or is there recognizing that, and that we will always have things coming up? I'm just trying to sort of see if there's a way to be maybe a bit quicker than what process allows us to be.
So to answer that, Councillor McGee, so we're trying to do two things. Well, I'm trying to do three things actually. So the first thing is we're trying to clean up what's on the ground relative to what's on the map. And so you'd be probably not surprised to find that we have things that are on the ground operating that aren't properly reflected in the mapping. So that's the first issue that we're trying to overcome and deal with. In moving forward with the documents, municipal development plan is a broad plan. It's a broad direction. So what you'll see in the map, the future land use map, it's a little more broad. So in terms of flexibility, when we talk about industrial, it's there. When we get to the land use bylaw, there's a number of different kinds of industrial, right? So it provides you with that flexibility to say, yeah, what's the intensity of it, and it provides you some flexibility when dealing with that. Same thing with residential. You know, we have a number of different kinds of residential, but at the municipal development plan level, we don't need to drill down into saying, oh, this is multiple family and this is single family and whatever. We don't need to do that. All we need to say is residential is going to go over here. Our employment areas are going over here, and keep it at a fairly high level, right? So that gives you your flexibility. On the land use bylaw side, what we're trying to do is build in some additional flexibility when we're dealing with the districts that will sort of prepare us for opportunities that may come up that we want some flexibility, yet still want that control.
That's what I'd hoped you would say. And so I originally, when I read through the documents in the last few days, what came to my mind is the MDP is this, but it isn't this. You know what I mean? And so that was, and I didn't know how to frame the question, but so that's where I think we have the LUB, which is where it drills down. And so the document does this, doesn't do that. This one will do that. And so know full well as a council that there's, it's not all in one paper.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks like we have a question from Nancy online. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you very much. I just want to start by saying thank you to Peter Vanna for presenting us the draft document today. I certainly appreciate the work that you've done on this, and it's starting to look fantastic and really come together. So thank you for that. So just a quick question. When we start to go out and conduct that feedback with council and the stakeholders and communities, I guess I just would like a little bit of clarity on how exactly we're going to be engaging when we go out to say, did we get it right? I guess, will they be working groups so the community and stakeholders and council have an opportunity to give their feedback and to kind of, I guess, work with yourselves and the group in really having a say of how we see the community in the next 5 to 10 years? Thanks.
So, Mr. Chairman, to answer the question, so similar to the way we did the initial engagement, when we had we through social media, through newspapers, we make people aware of the document. They're able to look at the document and the portal. When it comes to the open house, the way the open house was structured was that the material that was there, we're there to help and answer any questions that are there, but we're also there to sit down with people during those sessions and to, anything that they would like to talk about relative to the plan, they're able to do that. And that's exactly what happened. There were people that came into the open house that, maybe had specific concerns about their particular property or in general, what the pattern of growth was going to be in the community. And so we're able to do that. As well, we've already reached out to the county in terms of making them aware of the MDP and the draft so that we can get them engaged in terms of input as part of our intermunicipal development plan process. And so that's really how we do that. And similar to the youth advisory committee, and whether it's the sustainability committee, we're happy to sit down with any of those committees or groups that would like to sit down and have a conversation about the MDP so that we can get the feedback. And I think now that we have a draft of the document, I think it'll be a little more focused discussion. The initial conversation was a little bit more on, imagine what your community could be like. It was a little more abstract. Now we're actually talking about a document that people can, point to and put their finger on a policy or that type of thing.
Are you good with that, Nancy?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do we have anybody else? I wanted to just chat really quickly about the intermunicipal planning. Subsequent to some conversations we had yesterday around kind of that infrastructure, the town owned and operated services in county properties. Is that contemplated in that intermunicipal development plan, or is that somehow incorporated into this document?
The existing intermunicipal development plan is a fairly broad and general document, right? It just talks about how you're going to deal with one another, especially on the land uses that are on your boundary, right? The municipal development plan in the servicing section gets into a little bit more detail on a policy side in terms of how we're going to, what properties gets serviced and how they get serviced and that type of thing. And so we've tried to build in, based on what's in the existing plans and documents, some flexibility on how that works. So it's not unlike some municipalities where it's hard and fast to kind of say, you're developing this, therefore you shall service it kind of thing, regardless of whether the servicing is at your doorstep or not, right? This takes a more, I'm going to say, a balanced approach to say, we'll accept and we'll deal with some development that's being developed, but isn't anywhere close to community servicing, as an example, right? And so there is that policy in there that helps to deal with that kind of situation.
All right, that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything to bring to Mr. Vanna while we got him?
So there's just one motion relative to the report. That council received the municipal development plan and land use bylaw refresh update as information as defined in the report 24-153.
Perfect. If somebody's ready to make that motion, Miller.
Deputy Mayor, I would like to make that motion that council receives the municipal development plan and land use bylaw refresh update as information as defined in report AIR 24-153. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion in front of us. Do we have any questions, comments, or debate on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Favor.
Bill and Nancy, both in favor. Thank you, Mr. Vanna. All right, that is it for decision items. We can go directly into department reports and then cut everybody loose if we'd like. And we'll start with Community and Recreation Services Department with Mr. Van Claveren.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through to you, the rest of council. So this is the department report for Community and Recreation Services. In the ECDC, of course, we have the coming Friday, an event that will happen at the EBP Park. How did I say that? The park where they go out and basically enjoy some activities outside, and council is invited as well. The weather is a little bit, let's say, we have to see how it goes. So Friday morning, we'll see if that event still can happen with the weather conditions that might be not so in our favor. So if council members are coming over there, just keep an eye on that. That we'll decide it on Friday morning. Another one for Save the Date is way back for FCSS, for example, in September. So we do those activities as shredded, that the truck comes out for the community, help out with that. And when we organize that, we try to get that out as soon as possible for the community, because people have the opportunity, of course, to shred their paperwork and documents that they want to dispose of. Service Canada, which is also repetitive item, June 27th will still be a session from 11 to 3 p.m. where all kinds of services are available for our people to attend, and they will be helpful with all financial items that they can provide for us. The Mackenzie and our Omniplex area has been very, very busy in the last couple of weekends. So we saw that, of course, with all those events that took place over there, and you see an overview, very successful events that the community comes out again and participates in either fundraisers like the Go Baby Go event, or Active, with our Brute obstacle course race, the triathlon, or the other event like a walk for ALS, which was very successful. I was there at the end of the presentation where they said how many people came out. That wasn't a record, but for sure also the funds that they gathered over there during the event and before that with people pledging their money. So that was an awesome. There's more coming up, like we said. Big things to remember is we have the small town big life party happening at the Omniplex on June 14th. So that's coming up, a big event that happens indoor this time. And then we have, of course, the one in the summer outside in our downtown area later on in August. But this is a great event to come out and see each other again as a community. Indigenous Day, June 21st is one to keep in mind. And we have the Midway, June 21st starting as well. Of course, Canada is coming up on July 1st. In the pool, on the 27th, we do another event inside, which is new for the pool, Splash Dance. And I say new, but back in the day, we've seen it happening in the old pool as well. It's a great event to come out and have some fun with a different ambiance in our pool. And you see the times over there. Then we do that for both families, but also for a little bit older youth, let's say, starting at 8:30 p.m. The other items in the community service, the one that you see over there in the middle, where we say, hey, what's an outcome, for instance, for the RDN project, the project that we had the opportunity to house people for a month and hopefully continue working with them for a longer period of time. We have one individual of those 8 people that were unsheltered and housed that's now going into Urbanada and gets the opportunity and provided the opportunity to be housed for a longer period of time in our affordable housing project. And you see in facilities, of course, there's a lot going on in there. And one item in the middle, Cadence Court, the renovations in that unit that council approved is going pretty fast. So we hope before the end of this month to get people in that unit as well. As we see, of course, continuous turnover in those units, that we have vacancies that we can still fill with our wait list. If there's any questions.
Right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Van Claveren? Go ahead, Tom.
Just 2 quick ones. The Friday, June 14th barbecue for the ECDC, the timing is the same time, not same timing as Small Town Big Life. I assume you might be able to catch both. Is that the idea?
That's right. Thank you for that question. So absolutely, it's a family event for ECDC. So the families and the kids that in our care go out over there, and we do some activities for them as well. So not the whole community will go there, of course, but those families that attend that, people will have the opportunity to go to the party in the MCC, which is the Big Life party, after that for sure.
Okay, yeah, so they're not, one's a little earlier than the other one, I guess.
Correct.
Okay. The last piece was the one of 8 individuals housed has met the criteria and will be moving into Urbanada. I think that's a tremendous success in my view. Although what my question is, what are we doing with the other 7? What happens?
Thank you for that question, and through the chair, Councillor McGee. So when we talk about 8, part of that initial money through RDN that we could house for 1 month, 3 already were, let's say, after that month, not housed anymore in that project. So they found their ways in different areas. We had 5 that stayed longer in those locations, and a couple of them are still there. So they are, let's say, temporarily still successful, and we still working with those individuals as well to see if they can be longer term. But yeah, we see this one went into our affordable housing project that we operate as the municipality.
Terrific. Thank you, Hans.
I don't see any hands online, and I don't see any hands up in the room. So thank you, Mr. Van Claveren. Next up, we have Protective and Emergency Services. Chief Thompson, jump the gun. You can go if you want. It's up to you.
Good morning, Council. Just to provide Council with an updated report. The first part I'd just like to go over is our fire operations in terms of calls for service. In the first 4 months of the year, we responded to 175 calls for service. In terms of fire calls, we had 34 calls, 13 of which were wildland fire calls. Just to put that in perspective, last year at the same time, we were approximately 30 calls for service, and that was before it really got busy in May when we had the big fire. Motor vehicle collisions, we responded to 15. Rescue calls are primarily, the bulk of those were elevator calls, people stuck in elevators needed assistance. So we spent time going to different hotels and senior places to help people get out of elevators. We had 70 alarm calls. Then we had 43 assisting other agencies. The bulk of those are medical calls that we respond to. Again, we are still dealing with responding and arriving first on scene, which is still a concern for us. There has been improvements that have been made, but we are still in a situation where we're responding to a lot of calls and arriving first and providing first aid treatment. And then we had 10 miscellaneous calls. A lot of those are odor complaints or burst water pipes, power lines, smoke complaints, those types of calls. Moving on into some other things that have been going on around the fire service. On June 3rd, we welcomed our new training officer, Matthew Node, who started with us. Matt comes from Cold Lake, Alberta, where he was in the Canadian military. And he was a training officer, firefighter for 4 Wing Squadron there. Now he's decided to transition out of the military life and is now joining us to work with our team. In terms of the sprinkler trailer that I gave council an update several months ago, just to provide further updates, the trailer was purchased. All of the equipment has arrived. It is now at a welding shop in town where they are constructing the shelving for it. And at that point, once that's done, it will be going to another local shop in town to get the wrap put on it, which is where all the sponsors can put their names on the trailer. And at that point, we will be ready for presentation to the community and to council. So we are eagerly awaiting that. We're looking forward to being able to get that project completed and move forward. So we're just about done. We're pretty close. Also, in the first week of June, we ramped up our fire prevention and public community event program. June 5th, we were at the RCMP open house, which was a pretty good event. It was lots of fun. We also had the kindergarten class from St. Anthony's show up at our door on June 6th. And then June 7th, we had the Holy Trinity grad parade that we helped out with to wish them all well in their future endeavors. So that's my report.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Do we have any comments for Tom? Questions? Go ahead, Emil.
Just a quick question, I guess, regarding the people getting stuck on elevators. Tom, is it one particular establishment or is it happening?
No, it's kind of a whole wide variety of them. It's not just one in particular.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
I'll be quick as well. 43 calls for service. That's a medical assist. That's what you put some emphasis on being first. Now, the medical assist could be a number of things. Could be heart attack. Could be lots of things. But
right. Generally,
are these related to drug overdoses, that kind of thing, or?
It's hard to get an exact number in terms of drug overdoses. We do respond to a significant number of those. A lot of them that we are responding to are critical ones, so primarily cardiac arrests, strokes, those types of ones.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything online? Doesn't look like it's, okay, thanks, Tom. And next we have Municipal Service Department report. We have Shelley Terry. Take it away, Shelley.
Good morning, Deputy Mayor and members of council. I'm going to start with utilities. So the hydrovac operator has been busy at work, and the residential area on the southwest quadrant is now all clean for our sewer lines. Our newest operator had a great first on-call rotation. Our CC maintenance project is finding numerous inoperable valves. Some have already been fixed with the combo unit. The count is, I think we've fixed 8 in-house currently. Preventative maintenance schedules have been made for the water treatment plant equipment. Lagoon and shelter belt maintenance plans are being made. Utilities have taken over first calls to assist Public Works as they have many projects ongoing. Second quarter acute lethality sampling is being scheduled for our wastewater lagoons. Public Works cleaned up the hydrovac dump at the wastewater treatment plant as well. Parks, staff have been working on getting all the flower beds and pots prepped and planted. Second order of hanging baskets were actually delivered today. So we'll start installing those right away. Weed whacking and mowing is ongoing. Staff focused on Ivantoe Park and West Valley on June 6th and 7th to prepare for the Brute Obstacle Course, the HTA parade, and there was, I believe, a ball tournament as well. They completed Aspen View to South Entrance from June 3rd to the 5th. Staff worked on landscaping at the CATC to clean up around the back deck and along the pond. That's ongoing. Staff cleaned up the pickleball courts by the hospital. Staff have been working on the South Entrance flower beds and shrubs because they needed some major attention over there. Public Works, gravel roads are being prepped for dust suppression services. Cemetery landscaping has been underway for the last week. Mowing of ditches and large green spaces is ongoing with the bigger tractors. Street sweeping is ongoing. Staff have completed most of the town now. They did focus on the special events such as the triathlon, HTA grad parade. We've also been focusing efforts on cleaning the roads along the crack sealing route. Crack sealing is scheduled to start soon. Rain events have delayed this project, but upcoming weather is looking a bit better. So we have hopes that possibly next week they might be able to move in. Line painting will commence once crack sealing is completed. Street sign installations have been ongoing. Public Works assisted moving some objects for the Brute Obstacle Course in West Valley last week. Public Works cleaned up the shale pile by the RV dump in West Valley as well. Landfill and engineering, Public Works fixed a temporary road or the temporary road on phase 3 in the landfill. Snow dump RFP is closed and is currently in the evaluation stages. We are scheduling survey stakeouts in the next 2 weeks to analyze waste limits on top of cells 4A to 4D. Aerial survey for airspace analysis will happen in June. This will confirm proper compaction is being achieved based off tonnage of waste accepted. Fortis Alberta asked the municipality for approval at the old HW pickup school off the ring road for 106 meters of salvage of existing underground and overhead power lines and pad mounted transformer. The landfill is currently hiring a new scale attendant. We're mulching of the trees that are stored at the landfill and the snow dump location, which is ongoing right now. Elvira and I actually attended a meeting with Alberta Transportation regarding the Murrah Pond expansion and the costs associated. More information about this conversation how this conversation went is provided in the project status report. So I suggest you guys look over that one. A meeting has been scheduled for June 11th. That happened yesterday for the 50 Ave construction. We're finalizing schedules and yesterday while talking to ADCO, they had said it would speed up their process if we had the asphalt milled out for them. So we may be shutting down the road a little sooner than we anticipated in efforts to speed up the ADCO gas line relocation. But more information will be coming out early next week or hopefully by the end of this week on scheduling and road accommodations so we can get that out to the public. And I'll open it up for questions.
Perfect. Anybody in the room have? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is ATCO changing the alignment of that pipeline, or mostly just the depth?
Alignment as well.
Alignment too, eh? So we got to open up the whole road.
Yep.
Okay. The scheduling of a survey to stake out in the next 2 weeks. Survey stakeout in the next 2 weeks to analyze waste limits on top of cell 4A and 4D. So are you just looking to see if we can add to those?
Yes.
What
So-
their elevation is?
Yeah, so if we can add up, also how far we can dump over, so that we're not blocking drainages and things like that. So,
Gotcha.
it's for operations of the active cells currently.
Okay, and the aerial survey for airspace analysis. Yeah, what's going on there? You're doing
So
an
that
aerial survey?
confirms our compactions. So we want to make sure that the contractor that we've hired is meeting the 0.6 compaction rate that's stated within our agreement. And that also tells us how much life we have in our cells for airspace. So we want to make sure that we're doing that yearly to make sure that we're holding our contractor that's on site accountable for proper compaction.
Good. So what does that involve then? You survey what we have there, the block of the cell, and compare it to what's been put in there?
Correct.
And it should be a certain size if we're getting our correct compaction.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. I'll just ask you, how is the mulching going? I know we kind of threw that at you folks to take those trees and wood without anything in it, whatever. Mulchable, I guess, would be a good description.
So they're actually just starting today. So we haven't really done anything with that yet. So I'll have further updates in my next report to kind of let you know how that all went.
Okay, yeah, it'd be nice if we got some usable mulch out of that.
Well, and we tend, Sunny was saying we tend to use those on our roads up.
Oh, yeah.
It helps get some traction, so it's not as slippery and muddy for the residents to offload, so.
Okay, well, just as well, it's right there.
Yep.
I mean, just as long as we can use it.
Oh, we'll
that's the
use
good thing. Okay, thanks. That's it for me.
Go ahead, Tom.
Two things. On the mulching, do we contract the mulching? Or do we have a mulcher?
We don't have a mulcher, so we did contract it out, yep.
Are we spraying it all for dandelions or weeds?
With the current reorg that's happened within my department, it's kind of posed some challenges. I am looking at my options currently, and I'll provide an update on my next report. I do plan on doing something this year. I just don't know what that looks like quite yet.
Thank you.
Okay, it's not looking like we have anything online. A couple of questions for you. One, just with respect to 50th, and I might have asked this before, but I can't remember the answer. The intersection of the Ring Road and 50th Ave. When is that happening? And is that happening in the same time that we're doing 50th Ave and just looking at access?
It started already. So the county's already mobilized and started milling it out. So their construction's active right now.
Okay, and it'll be probably done here within a week.
Yeah, it's not a full reconstruct like what we're doing on 50th, so it should move fairly quick.
And then the other question I had, and this just kind of dawned on me, El Dorado and dangerous goods routes through town. Has that changed at all in terms of El Dorado not being there anymore? And does that kind of change things in terms of TDG routes through and around town? Maybe that's a question for Cody.
So currently the dangerous good route is established by bylaw. There has been no amendments to the bylaw currently. That is on my work plan, hopefully within the next, that's the next bylaw I'm working on, is the traffic bylaw in general. And that may encompass the dangerous goods route. So currently there is still the restrictions in place on the Monday to Friday, no dangerous goods between 8 to 4, kind of on that El Dorado where it used to be. Again, understanding most likely the intent of that was to ensure that dangerous goods weren't going by the schools. That is something where we can use discretion on what are we enforcing when it pertains to vehicles driving on those routes during the day. So.
Okay, no, that's all I had. Anything else from anybody? Great, that concludes our department reports. Thank you, Ms. Terry. And I think what we'll do is we'll break for lunch. Lunch is here. So I think what we'll do too as well is go into closed at some point here after lunch. So awesome.
So we don't really need staff back.
We don't need staff back, I don't think, no. Yeah, Jerry lunch, get out of here. All right. Peter, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Nancy, are you feeling worse today? I only asked because Sheila was not great today as well.
Probably about the same as yesterday.
Okay, thanks.
Sounds like it's gonna be a long one. Elvira had it for a week, I think.
And we talked about the dock. She doesn't have a dock, but are you going to the dock or are you just gonna let it be? That's a nice song.
Oh, I'm not going to the doctor, no.
Fighting for your life to go to average.
Okay, so moving right along. So Wally asked me to prepare for the sale of the lands. And so typically how municipalities do that is through an expression of interest. So the expression of interest in this particular case that you have in front of you is for not the sale of one property, but the sale of 5 properties. And I'll sort of walk through the properties in a minute. Generally, how it works is that just in terms of it outlines, how submissions are made. It has some supporting documents attached to it as well that can help any prospective person that wants to look at the properties and have some background in terms of what's the developability. So municipal development plan, land use bylaw, any area structure plans that are relevant. Also included some information about the properties themselves in terms of things like address, size, zoning, the evaluation price that we have, which would be the list price that we're shooting for. And then in terms of how the municipality will deal with proposals as they sort of come through in terms of the process. And so what I sort of envision here is that, you'll have this expression of interest open for a while. You may, set a sunset date for it. So it may be 60, 90 days, whatever, depending on how you deal with whether the intent here was to use multiple streams in order to get the word out. So that might be putting it on our economic development site. That might be, putting it on our social media. That might be going to commercial realtors and having them, if they, I don't necessarily perceive it to be a sole source, but that may end up being, and that may be part of the conversation we bring back to council, is in terms of whether it ends up being a sole source real estate thing for X amount of time. Then in terms of receiving proposals, getting those back, there may be multiple offers that we get, or there may be single offers, but typically, you'd have a small committee that kind of reviews the proposals that sort of come through and identify whether it sort of, meets your criteria, if it's an acceptable proposal or not, or whether you actually want to honor the proposal or not. And then there's goes through if they want to make a submission to look at making an offer and what the offer constitutes as part of this expression of interest. And so what you have in front of you is basically the outline of the expression of interest, and what we would do is just sort of finalize it once council makes its motion. In terms of getting the certificates of title and getting the proper offer to purchase forms and all that kind of stuff that would be part of this. So in terms of the properties, and this is probably where the real conversation happens, in terms of the properties that we're talking about. So I'll maybe start at the bottom. So the one at the bottom that's starred is next to the McDonald's. There's an old road right of way that's there and part of a parcel that's there. And so I kind of looked at it and say, well, that surprisingly doesn't have a lot of restrictions on it or constraints on it. And it has great exposure and to me, it's a good opportunity for a commercial site. So why not put that one on there? On the top picture, next to we're going into where the CTC is, on the south side of the road, there's an empty parcel there. That one, it's not too far from where the new A&W is and that kind of stuff is. So it doesn't have a lot of restrictions on it. It's serviced. It's even got the curb and the roads there, and so that seems to me an easy win to get that one marketed. Then across the street where the trailer park is, there's an empty lot that's actually divided by a road. I threw this one in because I thought, well, I don't know, it has a potential for commercial. Right now, it's zoned as urban reserve. But as part of the land use bylaw update, we would probably just zone it for what the intended use is to zone it to, and that would be commercial. And so there's the odd constraint on it in terms of pipelines, but it is right next to the road, a good access. You just need to deal with the access to the trailer court, but I see it as a good exposure in a prime commercial site. It depends on the type of pipeline it is. It depends whether it's abandoned or still live.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that will determine the setback on a pipeline. In a lot of cases here, you may end up with one that's abandoned, and so you can build right on top of it so long as you deal with the pipeline or remove it or whatever. If it's still live, then you do have a bit of a setback from it. Moving north, there's another two lots. These are a little bit more, I mean, they're there. It's next to the road. That internal road is not developed. It would have to be developed. And in terms of servicing, you may have to extend the servicing to it. I think the servicing runs in 50th Street. And so it's still I think it's worthwhile marketing these two for commercial purposes. I mean, they could theoretically be, light industrial, but right now they're zoned for commercial. And that's the thing. Like a lot of these, except for the one next to the trailer park, are already zoned, right? So it's, from my perspective, it makes it easy to sell them or to market them. So those are the parcels. In terms of sort of where do we go from here? Council makes the motion to sell these. Then what we'll do is we'll set up the mechanism to get the word out, contact the real estate groups, and put it on our website and get things organized so that we're able to receive offers on it. Any questions?
I guess, go ahead.
Just
Before, I think the real thing for us would be to try to figure out the evaluation. And so you're suggesting we would use multiple advertising streams, expression of interest, maybe a sole service real estate. How do we get to an evaluation? How long will that take?
So we've already done the evaluations on it in terms of what we would expect to receive from that. That's why last year we did the evaluation on all, those, 12 parcels or whatever. Yep. So it's all in there. And all we've done is basically cut and paste from the report. Here's the constraints. Here's the encumbrances. Here's the zoning. Here's the areas, etc. And so it's all there. So people can look at that and we can provide them with additional information in terms of where exactly are the pipes if they need to see that. And so I think that's and the good part about it was in terms of market value, well, at least we have something to start with, right? There's the market value. If we end up hooking up with the commercial realtor, they may have an idea of if they want to tweak that offer or whatever, but at least we know how much we should expect to receive from selling this land. So you'll have more than the $1 million you need to buy the land, buy the other property.
I note that we've had a sale. I would term it as the old Byron building right on 50th. So that just sold in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So we have a sort of an indication. But in other cases, we have lots of property that's been on for sale that's not moving. And so we'd have to try to sort of figure that out. Why did that move and not that? And I'm assuming it's priced right. So we have to come out of the gate priced right.
And certainly that's one of the reasons I want to, I suggested that we go to some of these commercial industrial realtors because they have a good feel for where the market is, where the demand is, expanding their network of, where they advertise for properties, their relationship with industrial developers and so forth, right? I've got a connection with a couple of industrial developers as well that I would put this expression of interest out to as well, just based on my experience. And so, see, that's how I see moving forward with it.
Nancy or Bill, do you guys have anything for Peter on this?
Not at this time.
Oh, not for me. Just clarity on the last one, 50th Avenue and Highway 22. What was that one again?
By McDonald.
That was the land that's next to McDonald Restaurant. That's the old right of way.
The road to nowhere.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that one's the McDonald's. The 2160 50th Street was, sorry, I wrote them down wrong.
Yeah, those are all CETC area. 50th
Oh,
Street.
so that's all. Oh, that's CTC. Is that the Pleasant View one? The 385?
Work on the screen. Anyway, so the addresses relate to what's on the map.
Oh, I don't think I have the map.
It's in the package on page 168, but the two 50th Street ones are closer to, they're between the two hotels on Main Street there, between
Right.
the one with the little golf course at the front and Holiday Inn, I think.
That's correct.
Oh, okay,
Those
gotcha.
Two of the 50th Street is where those ones are. And then one is by Pleasant View. Out front by Pleasant View, and then one by CTC.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I see the map now. No, I don't have any other questions. I say let's sell them. Thank you. Thanks, Peter.
Welcome.
Yeah, and I would say the one by the CETC, that's So there's currently one for sale there right now by the A&W, and it's about $680,000. I think it's roughly the same. So this is all sort of in that same ballpark, right? And I mean, the nice thing is there's other people advertising, so maybe they're looking at that and then they look at this stuff and go, okay, well, we've got options, right? So that's a plus for sure. Otherwise, yeah, pretty straightforward stuff here, I think.
And I think, yeah, what I also, as I mentioned earlier, what I'd like to do is utilize, and I think we should be utilizing our economic developments website to list these properties. And so part of this exercise will be, preparing a little bit of a prospectus on each property and putting that on our website as well.
Perfect.
Peter, do we have a view of the piece of property that we've negotiated with Weyerhaeuser? It doesn't seem to show up yet. I think we've completed the deal. But it's there somewhere in the corner. Not that it's going to be included in this, but we don't see it anywhere.
Yeah, our mapping, our GIS is like way behind. That's been one of my issues in just trying to do the municipal development plan as well as the land use bylaws, is that some of our GIS mapping is either inaccurate or has a big question mark or whatever. And so, yeah, it's a little behind.
He said he's talking about we got made because we had to survey it. Is that right?
Well, definitely on a sale, you got to survey it anyway.
So
And
it's not finalized yet.
Well, we haven't completed.
we don't have a CFT on it yet,
What is CFT?
certificate of title.
No, it's not even. The lawyers are still.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess it isn't finalized yet.
Lawyers are still making money. Okay. Alrighty. So there's nothing further there. I think, I don't know, looks good to me.
Can I just, while I've got you here, there's one thing I just wanted to mention about the municipal development plan that you may notice in it. And so, and we're still trying to work our way through this, is that on RGIS mapping, there inside the county, there is an old landfill. And I don't know, we haven't been able to get an answer from the county yet in terms of, so did you actually build a residential subdivision on top of a landfill? Because the problem is that under provincial regulations, you got to be 300 meters away from the landfill. And so, the stuff that we do know, our own landfill and our own sewage treatment plant, I mean, yeah, that's easy. But in the county, there's this parcel that we're still trying to figure it out. So we had to map it. And we did put a little clause in there that if there's going to be development in the town near where that landfill theoretically was, then they'll have to do the due diligence, right? That only makes sense. That's sort of our way around it. But I just wanted to make you aware of it, because if you're looking at the map in terms of constraints, you'll see that you'll probably be asking yourself, well, why the heck is that? So that's the story behind that.
So where would that be?
I don't.
It would affect Alex and Lori's land by Maraw, that big piece of farmland they have that kind of is sitting.
Highlands Park?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And it's that subdivision where by the ring road, I think Joshua Boulevard, all of that is supposedly
Yeah, it's off Range Road 73.
or somewhere in that area. I don't know the exact.
And so we're and south of 43rd Ave. And Muir Road. So it's, just north of Muir Road. Where 33 Ave and 31st Ave are in that area. There's a whole quarter section. And apparently it was a landfill. But now there's country residential right on top of it. So it's still to be.
Maybe there's a reason why you haven't got an answer. They don't want to admit to it, maybe.
I
Interesting.
want to just make you aware of that. In case, you look at the constraints map and figure out, well, why is that circle there?
Interesting.
I guess would be, who knows, right? What, who knows how far back this would go if there was a landfill, that could be.
And where would you have found that info, Peter?
It came up on our GIS. So when the lands were annexed,
Yeah.
the county sent over the GIS mapping that they had, and we just incorporated it into our GIS. And so that's where it's located. And we can't really remove it until we do our own due diligence to sort of figure out, was it a landfill or not a landfill? Like, I don't know how the county, well, I don't even ask that.
Yeah.
Built a subdivision over top of the landfill, right?
Yeah, is it possible it was proposed landfill?
Well, if it was a proposed one, that's okay, but
Yeah, different story.
that's a whole different story. But this says it was an existing landfill.
Interesting.
Yeah, and does it give you a year of when it was there? Yeah, I don't know, many years ago. The county did, there was a fella in planning and development who was looking for all of the abandoned landfills in the county. And yeah, there was a couple in some pretty interesting places that had been developed, but one of them was very small. It was just like used for a year or two until they got another one set up. And so it's hard to say the extent of what might be there or what might not be there, especially when you're going back so many years. So I guess that was maybe one of them that they had found and tracked, but there was quite a few in some pretty strange places.
Well, that's why we're, conversing with the county to sort of figure out, I mean, they would have the record. Is it just a farmer's dugout that he was filling in, or is it a full blown whatever, right? So unfortunately, it covers a whole quarter section, which doesn't help us, right?
Yeah. All right.
The hills,
Yeah.
find a little garbage in there.
Okay.
Things to mind though, as a kid, I don't remember anything out there in the 60s, 63, 64. We were always wandering around. But I do know that Northview Pond had big storage pits that they used to burn off all the time. So you store the oil and then throw a torch in and burn it off. So a phase one on that one, so it's.
You don't want to know
Very interesting, Tom.
All right, so if we're done with the sale of surplus lands, we can bump over to the purchase agreement for El Dorado School Site. Yeah, we do. Yeah. So we will have a couple motions, I think, right?
All right, I will present this to the best of my ability. So as you'll remember, at the May 1st regular meeting of council, resolution 108/2024 was passed. It reads that council direct administration to offer to purchase the property for $920,000 from the Wild Rose School Division, and that council directs administration to fund the purchase from reserves, and that council direct administration to begin the process to sell surplus lands, and that the proceeds of the sale of the lands be used to replenish the reserve funds as defined in report AIR 214-088. This report is to seek approval for the conditions included in the draft purchase of sale agreement. The draft agreement is attached. So hopefully you've had a chance to review the agreement, but really the things that to highlight is just that we are asking for the land to be ceded either seeded or sod to be put in. And we, of course, we don't know if they'll agree to sod per se or just to seed, or like what they'll come back with conditions. You know, if you're buying a house or a property, you go back and forth. But I don't know. I think seeding, Wally and I talked, and that's probably not a hill that we'd want to die on, sod versus seed. But in terms of reclaiming it and having it seeded, that's one of the conditions. And then, of course, the other thing is that we're asking to pretty much have access to the lands to do any studies or let's see what the wording says.
Level 1, they should be doing
Creeps, sorry.
Yeah, I just thought Wally mentioned that yesterday or something, asking him for a level 1 environmental assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, I thought that we were gonna do it and we weren't sure, we didn't have it budgeted for it. So, but we are asking to have access to the lands before, just so we can assess it. I'm not sure exactly under what conditions we would if we're not doing the environmental assessment. But that's pretty much what this agreement states.
Section
I would say
4.2.
within-
Permitted to inspect the lands, yeah.
3.1 says, within 10 days following the effective date, the vendor shall deliver or cause to be delivered. And then it says any soil tests, environmental reports,
Yeah.
assessments, etc.
And that, and then also, we're also asking for us to be able to go and do our own, whatever we want. So if we want anything in excess of that, then that would cost us our own money.
I think normally the environmental assessment should be provided by the seller.
Yeah, within 10 days. If you see 3.1, Bill, that is in there. But it,
So a couple of things. One, like it's not super clear because typically, like say for 3.1C, you would say at the expense of the seller, right? And it's not clear in there saying that, you know, you guys are paying for this, not us. And then for the benefit of the buyer. Because if it's not clear, then they're going to go, okay, well, we didn't have one. It said if it doesn't say we have to have it. It's just saying if it's available,
Yeah.
provide it, right? So, yeah, it's not available. Sorry. Yep. So we have to be clear. They're saying we want it, and it's you guys are paying for it. One thing there, 4.1B. So the comment there saying this has been inserted, so the town has the ability to not close. But I think one thing we could do instead of kind of inserting that clause is saying, you know, if it's not executed to our liking, there's going to be a holdback, and that holdback could be, you know, 300 grand. You know, whatever that number is to remedy whatever is remaining there, right? So then that doesn't hold up the sale. We can take possession, but still not have paid them full. Would be the idea there.
the closing date terms coming. Four B?
Yeah.
4.1B?
4.1B, yeah. And then all that does is just ensures that if they say, you know what, we're going to wash our hands of it, we still have $300,000 to play with, right? To clean up or whatever we have to do. Whatever that number is, doesn't have to be 300, just throwing that out there.
Yeah. This isn't just what town doesn't need, but- For sure. Yeah, and then the 5.1 is where like the reclamation kind of is addressed.
Yeah, I guess.
Colin,
Yep.
In 5.1, would we want to say again at the expense of the seller?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think so. It does say the vendor, yeah, shall cause. Yeah.
And does vendor then have to be included in the definitions, or are we just assuming? Just to be clear, I guess.
It does say that the Board of Trustees of Wildrose School Division is the vendor on the front, right on the below purchase and sale agreement.
Yeah, the vendor is, yeah.
And the vendor is the registered owners of the land.
Oh, okay, you're right. Thanks, Alvera.
I'll write up a motion that encompasses the comments so that we can actually have it. So we can do something about it after. Let's see, what's the recommended motion? The council approve the conditions contained in the purchase of sale agreement, and that council directs the CAO to send the final version of the purchase of a sale agreement to the Wildrose School Division as defined. So I'll work on putting these changes in for council before we come out of close to make the motions.
One thing I don't see over here is just typically in a purchase contract, you have an exact time with which you take possession. It doesn't say anywhere in here. It talks about getting them the money by 2 p.m., but it doesn't say when we actually take possession. So typically it's vacant possession on, say 12 p.m. on such and such a date. Doesn't say a specific time. So typically it would be like under section 2. Yeah. So it says like on 2.3, it talks about the date, but it doesn't say a specific time is kind of the. On the closing date at whatever time they deem necessary. Could be 4 o'clock, could be 3 o'clock, doesn't matter. Yeah.
Like if I've never bought a property like this, but when you're buying a house, they don't tell you a time because they don't know when the funds will clear.
They do. Every purchase contract
Really?
says at noon,
Oh,
vacant possession
I haven't
on
read it
such and such a
then
date.
clearly.
Yeah, it's
Does it
all-
say like at 12 p.m. subject to?
Nope, it says, it will say exactly 12 p.m. on such and such a date, vacant possession will be provided to the buyer, period.
Not subject to payment?
That's, no, big, I mean, so 12 is
Oh.
subject essentially to the lawyers, whenever they decide really.
Yeah.
So 12 just gives it a time. So then, I mean, a lot of the times they'll close 6 hours later, it doesn't matter. But if you put a time in there, then it's sort of like, here's a timeline, so they're not waiting till,
Yeah.
11:59 kind of thing, so. There should be a time, I think, specified.
Okay. I have to put specifics in the clause for time of possession. I have the environmental reports that we want it, and it's going to be at their expense. The phase 1, yeah, not just that, if it kind of reads as if they're available. Yeah.
Because they're only good.
Yeah, so that's specifics, and then in 4.1B to have not just giving us the ability not close, but to have a holdback so that
If
we can
something
still,
isn't to our satisfaction.
so
then
we can do it. Like that we can do it, have
it
that
gives-
money.
Yeah, it gives us the ability. It doesn't mean we have to do it.
Yeah.
They'll go, shit, we forgot
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
We hold it back until it's either done or we do it ourselves, right?
And to have not necessarily 300,000, but
Just some,
just something there.
a sum of money.
Okay, sounds good. And we will leave the cedar sod in that way. Okay.
In 7.3G, it says, to the best of the vendor's knowledge, there are no hazardous substances, pollutants, contaminants, or waste present in the soil, subsoil, or groundwater. Blah, blah, blah. The vendor, none of the above have been deposited, discharged, placed, or disposed at. So we're asking them to confirm that it's clean and there is no contamination. Do we still require them to do an environmental assessment even though they claim this, or should we go back to them and say, we think there is?
Well, there's one thing knowing and there's one thing saying, well, we think nothing's there. So to the best of their knowledge, but actually confirming through phase 1 or 2 is the best way to do it, I think. But yeah, you definitely ask them, is there anything wrong here? Yes or no? And if they say yes, then it's like, okay, well, you disclose that, great. If they say no, you still proceed as if, I think we have to cover ourselves, right? Is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a look. I'm just wondering the process. Do we make it a requirement? And maybe we do, that's fine. Do we make it a requirement, or do we question their representation and warranty that there is nothing there? And we, like you say, we hold back and say, we think there may be. I guess it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other, right?
The other thing I would say though, I mean, between a phase 1 and 2, there's a pretty big difference, right? Phase 1 is pretty much just a visual. Phase 2 is actually like getting in there and taking all that stuff. So I would rather a phase 2, and don't give them the option of a phase 1. Let's just go phase 2. And if, it costs, I don't know, $3,500 or something, maybe $4,000 for a phase 2. And I think we put that on them, I think. And I don't think we give them an option of phase 1, just because there's a huge difference between the two, right? One's just looks good, and the other one's, is it good or not, right?
Yeah.
Typically in the past, we've requested a phase 1. I know with the agreement with the FMA and Weyerhaeuser was a request at a phase 1, and the phase 2 would come at our expense because it's like $30,000, right? So that was the I guess the reasoning for. I don't think we'd be able to request personally a phase 2, knowing that there's quite an extensive cost to it.
Well, I think the difference here is we're spending $920,000 to get it versus getting it for free, but that's just my opinion. Go ahead.
I mean, typically you, it's always a phase 1 at the time of a sale. It's normally phase 2 at the time of development, right? Prior to development. So I if there isn't any developments, you would normally not ask for the phase 2. So I think as was mentioned, that typically be on us at the end of the day, or whoever we sell it to, or whoever's developing it would do the phase 2.
Yeah. Is there anything further from anybody? I'm okay either way. It doesn't matter, but as a buyer, you want to protect yourself as much as possible, right? So.
Yeah, I agree, but do we want to give them an excuse to say, no, we're not going to spend another $30,000? I don't know. Do we think that there's contamination in there? What's that? Yeah. There wasn't an old landfill under there, was there? No.
The only thing that maybe comes to my mind is that the disposal well to the west. Is it possible that something's migrated east towards the school? I mean, that's not the school's fault, right? But I mean, that is a liability. you know.
That may be on Ricochet as part of their reclamation, though, cleanup, right? That's something we could take up with them.
For sure, but there's nothing, as far as I'm aware, that they have to clean it up, right? They can monitor for essentially into eternity, really.
So in that situation, if we buy it and we do a phase 2 now, and there's nothing, is like, if that can change in the next 20 years when we build something on it, then we'll have to do another one then anyways.
Phase 1.
As a matter of point, the Ricochet well, they've been working on it for the last 2 weeks. So I'm guessing that it's getting ready to get a rec certificate, which I was hoping before they got the rec certificate that we would have a conversation with them, Nancy, about if they see anything more regarding a park or a fountain or something for the seniors. But I don't think
absolutely.
The only other thing, sorry, I would add in here under condition is just, so I know this is written by lawyers here, but the final purchase contract there should be a condition saying that this is subject to legal review as to form, is how that should probably read. And so effectively, that's just a legal review of the contract. I would assume this is our MRF that's done this. I would assume they have a real estate team there, right? But I don't know. Is it worth putting that in there? I mean, it is written by lawyers, but you want to have them have, you know, if they read something in there after it goes to Wildrose School Division, they come back with a counter saying, strike this, keep this, add this. We still want our legal team to review it, right? And they would anyway, right? But you want to have that as a condition because that also gives you another layer to say, no, our legal team's not happy with this. So yeah. Yeah, fair enough. We put that in every single commercial contract. That's all it's just another layer, right?
Sounds good. I don't actually know if the motion needs to read all these specifics, do you know? As amended? Okay. Sounds good then. Thanks, guys.
So out of this, we have, what do we have here? I think one option here in terms of a motion. It's either to accept, approve the conditions contained in the draft sale, or that council direct the CAO to send the final version of the purchase of sale agreement to the Wildrose School Division as defined in the report. Right, but then do we not want to make some changes before we make a motion, right?
Sale agreement. I think that would be my recommendation. Then we don't have to wait till the next council meeting and miss our deadlines and stuff. Yeah.
I didn't hear what Elvira said for
Oh.
the motion recommendation.
We were talking about the motion and if it needed to read the specific amendments, or if we could just say that council approve the conditions contained in the draft purchase of sale agreement as amended. Or if they wanted to list the specific amendments that council brought up.
You know the numbers? Because you could say with the amendments to
Makes sense, Nancy.
5.1 or, you know.
Are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Hear me? Hello?
Same thing.
I'm over here trying to read.
Should I just call them and? Yeah.
Hear you. Wait. She can hear us.
Hey Nancy, can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear you. You just can't hear us or me apparently.
Maybe I'll just I'll loop Bill into this phone call and we can, rather than messing around.
My suggestion is just.
Can you not hear me?
Just have or recommend. Contained in the draft purchase of the sale agreement with amendments to, and then just list the numbers if we know what they are rather than the actual amendments.
Yeah, we could do that. Yep. Okay, sounds good. And then the other one, the sale of surplus lands. We have just one recommended, Rich. Well, no, it's to release expression of interest and select a realtor to market and sell. Wait, the other one.
Yeah, just the two motions. Direct administration. Yeah, to direct administration to release the expression of interest.
So now, just a question for you guys. I'm guessing I shouldn't be voting on that one.
Well, you should remove yourself. You probably should have removed yourself earlier, but yeah, for pecuniary interest.
Well, I mean, the sale of surplus lands, I think it's fine to talk about it, but I think the actual decision to go ahead with it is a different story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, I won't be here for the vote then. Okay, somebody will have to take that one over and direct that. So sale of surplus lands. Okay, I think it's clear as mud. So we can, is there anything else in closed anybody want to talk about? Monica has one thing to talk about here.
It doesn't really matter if you stay or. So it's something way off topic, but so I sit on the. Sorry. Oh, I sit on the EPAC, the Eleanor Pickup Arts Center Committee, and I don't know who the alternate is, but I'm not sure if I should be on that committee because they are strongly trying to pursue the expansion of the center, and I am kind of really strongly against it. So I'm not sure if it's a conflict of some sort, but it's kind of almost very uncomfortable sitting on it when they're very passionate about something that I'm very, I think is just way too much money to be spent on a project that expands the building by 15 feet. So I'm asking if anybody else wants to sit on it or if the alternate will take over from now on.
Would we be funding any of that, or is it all
We own half
privately
of the
raised?
building, so I'm not quite sure. I've only been to 2 meetings so far. But I'm thinking 4.5 million for 15 feet of sidewalk. Change room is a little bit excessive. And I'm just, yeah, if somebody else wants to take over, go ahead. But I think I'm asking to be removed from that because I don't think it's really fair for me to sit on a committee that's making all these big plans to have this expansion and me sitting back in the chair watching all of them work hard as knowing that I'm just not, I'm going to vote against it anyways. So, yeah.
Okay. Do we know who the alternate is?
Yeah.
But having said that, I sit on the library board and they're looking at expanding too as well. And I'm not sure if I would support it or not support it, but we're there to bring a perspective. perhaps we're the people that would say, I think you're not going to get anything. So why do you spend all your time?
But I almost made my point kind of known, and it doesn't affect them. It's like they're so far into planning, they actually had interior designer come in already and make, like, they're really far gone into this, and I'm not sure if it's some kind of a conflict from between myself and people on that committee. Like, not obvious, but just, I know I'm gonna say no to it. And even me, no, I understand that, but me going to the meetings and being paid for attending the meeting that I'm just sitting there pretty much not even participating in because I'm, yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
If anyone's talking, we cannot hear you.
No, I see what you're saying, but pretty much the whole entire meeting, the 2 hours is talked about. You know, we had this person come in and they want to move the bathrooms over here now and this and that. And I mean, I'm fine with staying on the committee. I'm just saying it's, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't sure how it works with, you know, me voting on, I mean, being a voting member on the committee that asks, you know, should we continue with expanding this or spending money on this or another survey or some kind of a designer. I mean, obviously I'm voting no because I'm not in favor, but it's just, it is uncomfortable, but whatever. I'll continue going to it. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I don't, I'm pretty sure they don't have the kind of money that it's gonna cost to, yeah. Okay, I just wanted to know, but anybody know who alternate is, just in case I don't make it to next meeting or whatever? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't mind, whatever, I'll stay on it. I just wanted to know if anybody else wants to go because it's, yeah. Mhm. Yep. They're not on our list. It's, we were asked to join APAC probably 4 months ago or so, and so it wouldn't be on our original, yeah. Mhm. Oh, okay. Okay. Sounds good. That was all. Thanks.
Okay, was there anything else you want to chat about? Did you have anything, Elvira? All right. Then we can come out of closed. Can I get somebody to make a motion to get us out of closed? Thank you. All in favor?
I'll make the motion that we come out of closed.
At 1:16. Sure.
Evidence, go over agreement with the business and
Yep.
so the council for the conditions wherever in the draft purchase of sale agreement with amendments in 2.3, 3.1C, 4.1. Law of this taking it down.
Oh.
We'll switch that one. They all work. It's not available. Fortunately, actually. Yeah.
Shut up, dude.
All right, you guys are back on, Nancy and Bill?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you bet. Are you still with us, Bill? All right. Okay, thanks, Bill. Okay, so what we'll do is we have a couple of motions to be made, of which one of them I will accuse myself on pecuniary grounds. So Tom, do you want to take that over? And okay, I'll leave the room. Let me know what you're doing.
Elvira, can you make sure that that's captured for Colin?
Correct. I will do that.
You ready to make the motion? It's in the package, but the purchase the lands he's out for, right? Yeah. Yeah. All right, first motion.
I'll make a motion that the council approve conditions contained in the draft purchase of sale agreement as amended in section 2.3, 3.1C, and 4.1B, and that council direct the CAO to send the final version of the purchase of sale agreement to the Wild Rose School Division as defined in report AIR 24-154.
Problem is, this is the one Colin,
Yeah, he's recused.
the Eldorado school lands.
He's recused, yeah.
He was recusing himself for the other one though.
Yeah.
So. Yes, yes. Sorry. Rather than having to table it. Sorry, we just did the other one first.
Other one above the expression. That one. That's the one you got.
All right, so we're doing the. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe repeat the motion?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the council approve the condition contained in the draft purchase of sale agreement as amended in section 2.31, 3.1C, 4.1B, and that council direct the CAO to send the final version of the purchase of sale agreement to the Wild Rose School Division as defined in report AIR 24-154.
All right, so all those are any questions, comments, or debate on? Hearing none, so all in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Right. That is carried. So now we will bump over to the other one and I will leave once again.
Okay, thanks, Colin.
Second motion coming out of closed. Councillor Evans.
Okay, I'll make the motion that council direct administration to release the expression of interest and select a realtor to market and sell the identified lands on behalf of the town as defined in report AIR 24-145.
The only message is Councillor Clark has recused himself from this.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay. Any questions, debate? Question on the motion then? All in favor?
In favor.
Favor.
Carried. Thank you.
All right, so we are on council reports. Councillor Kamana is not here. We have Councillor Evans up next. Take it away, Councillor Evans.
Okay, let me just pull my calendar up here. Since the last council meeting, let me see. I did attend the RCMP open house, but I was not able to attend the seniors tea on the 5th of June, unfortunately. Let me see. On the 10th, I attended the unconscious bias training at the Mackenzie Conference Center. On the 11th, I attended the our council workshop and pre-workshop meeting. And that is about it for me this last week or two. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Councillor Sheriffs.
So on June 4th, I had a Alberta Clean Air webinar, which was really quite interesting. It kind of reflects on the West Central Airship Society and the air monitoring that they do and how people can check air quality online. Then I had the Youth Advisory Committee meeting, RCMP open house. On June 6th, I was very happy to have 39 kindergarten kids enter the council chambers and swarm it like little tiny bees that want to press every button and speak to every microphone, get every hammer they can get their hands on. It was really overwhelming, and I have a whole different appreciation for teachers. Let me tell you, there's just some things I could not do, and that's one of the things I could not do. Try to control 39 hyper kids that just came back from the bakery and were given donuts. I'll just leave it at that. Then on June 10th, I attended the unconscious bias training and 11th council workshop.
And next on the list, we have Councillor McGee.
Can I just ask a question on the bias training? I think you may have been the only councillor there.
I was there.
No, Rick and Colin were.
Okay.
Too.
So, and do we have an opportunity again? I'm not sure because we
Was
got
there in
kind of-
spirit, I guess I could say.
Oh, okay. Well, that's enough said.
It was, yeah. You took it? Yeah, you were there. What do you think of it?
It was all good information. I just wish it would focus more on like how to deal with the biases. You know what I mean? Not just tell us where we have biases.
Out them.
Yeah. This was the one paid for by Pembina. No, not to this extent. We just kind of told them like who we're looking at, like, and what kind of type of training, and then they said sure and released the funds. Yeah.
I'll start with if the FCM happened to sit with some Greenfield Federal Initiative people, and they're going to get back to us, and it may be that we can complete that entire pathway for Weyerhaeuser, working with that between the two groups. So there'll be more information to come. I was thrilled at some of the conversation I had with those folks, which, by the way, it just happened upon Little Forest. Then, of course, we had Justin, and we had Elizabeth May, and we had Jagmeet, and we had Catherine Clark. So we were all be able to sort of touch those politicians a little bit. Yeah, and so it was, but it was more interesting than I thought. In fact, when I saw it, I thought, oh my goodness, that's where our keynotes are folks that actually can't get anything done. But you'll notice that Elizabeth May was on CBC yesterday as one of the opposition parties that read the report for the issue around MPs that were participating in yeah, and so she came out and clearly said that that wasn't the case. And so, and I have a newfound respect for her. Her remarks were outstanding, right to the point. We're not children of the province. The province has to come to the table. You know, all things that you think, and Jagmeet said the same, but if you haven't got the ability to actually put the money on the table, you can say all you want. But I thought I really do have a newfound respect for her. And so that for me was good. The other thing I'm working on a little bit is men's mental health. And men's mental health, we've got a committee now of Ken Willows, Darren Pitkoski, Cody Fisher, Sue Reish, who with the Wild Rose School Division sort of organizes it, and Chris from the IGA. So we're going to have a little tent, if all works out, at the Canada Day celebration. And just to hand out some brochures that we've already got printed up, and maybe give away a cooler with some T-bone steaks or something. We're working on that. So, and then there's a brochure. Are you okay? So I think I think we're moving further ahead on that committee. It's been a couple of years since we've been introducing it, but it's coming along very well through the CCC, the Healthy Communities, or HEC, the Healthy Communities. The other thing is the Opportunity Homes. You see we're getting lots of information back and forth. I've yet to sit down with Mr. Ferry, but I will be sitting down with him to talk about what we might be able to do using Jason Nixon as the minister and the Marshall as the advisor, special advisor that we talked about yesterday with Alberta Council. So watch for that as well. Through the Healthy Communities Coalition, there's two workshops coming. One is Safe Talk. And Safe Talk is going to be about, let me just take a moment to get that. Okay, Mr. McGee, how do you do it? Get out. Anyway, Safe Talk is going to be about suicide prevention. And I might be able to get now. And then and that's on, it's 3.5 hours. It's on from 1 to 4:30 at the CETC. And you have to register by June 14th. Now, I think we're fairly busy on the 14th. The other one is mental health, which is June 25th, and that's from 9 to 4 at the Beehive. Deadline for registration on that is June 17th. So I also show on June 25th a workshop. Are we workshopping again on our? The June 25 one? Yeah. Okay, so it's open for anybody that's interested in those two subjects, and the RCMP open house I was at, and the seniors tea. And I'll tell you, that room was packed with senior ladies. I think if there was 4 men in the room, that would be it. And,
including yourself?
Including myself. And I got a ton of hugs. It was just one of those days. So it was terrific. Lots of folks came up to say thanks. Nice for them to get together, that they don't see each other because they're at the lodge or they're this and the other. So it's really a good opportunity. So FCS has done a remarkable job on that. So kudos to them. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next, we have up Councillor Ballas. Are you good to go, Bill?
This week, fly-in breakfast on June 1st. On June 5th, the RCMP open house, and seniors team. And that's my report.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill. Next up is myself. A couple things. ECDC, I forwarded on that Elevating Early Learning and Childcare in Alberta collective responsibility document. And there's a graphic that goes along with it. And essentially it's a bunch of groups in that space that have they're lobbying to kind of up the game, I guess, on early learning and childcare training for the folks that are actually in that space. So really the ask is just have a peek, take a look at it. And the ask is if the town would throw its name and support behind that from an early learning perspective. So I forwarded that on to council. So whenever you guys have a chance, take a look. But I think it's an easy thing to get behind. We're already, I think, ahead of the curve on that stuff in terms of training and benefits and all those sorts of things. So I think we're okay, and there's nothing wrong, I think, with throwing our name behind that one. So there's that. And then also on Friday, there's an ECDC, well, it's tentative now because of potentially the weather being crappy. What is the name of that little event there? I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. Right. Was anybody planning on going that? I won't be here. I'll be at a grade 8 camp. I'll be at a grade 8 camp. So is anybody else able to make that? I just can't. So. Right. Yeah.
Is that the one we barbecued at?
Yeah.
Last year?
Pretty sure that's the same one.
Yeah, I should be able to make that.
Yeah, I think Vermilion usually.
I think Weyerhaeuser had a bunch of seedlings last year too, or something. Yeah, I don't mind barbecuing for a couple hours.
Okay, I'll maybe ask. Sure, I'll ask them to throw out a meeting invite, so it's in calendars. So if it's not in my calendar, I don't go. So I'll ask them to send it out. So it's tentative right now, only because of weather potentially being crappy on Friday. So also attended the EPBR AGM and the PPRRC AGM last night, and by and large, those boards remain the same folks. Also attended the HTA grad ceremony, did a little speech there for them. It's kind of a cool little event, lots of people in the arena there, and they enjoyed themselves. So I think it was the first time they had held HTA in there, so they were all pretty happy with it. Other than that, that's all I have. And next up, we have Nancy.
Thank you. So for me, I attended FCM conference, a couple of mid-sized mayors caucus meetings. We had the Alberta Council and Housing Workshop. There was the RCMP open house. I attended the Walk for ALS, and did the opening with Monica and Karen, myself, and the fly-in at the airport. That's it for me.
Okay. Perfect. The next thing we have on our agenda is the project status reports. Anybody have any questions about that? Not that we have anybody really here to answer questions on that other than Elvira. I don't think so. I think we got a pretty good update from our department reports. Anything from Nancy or Bill on those? Hearing a no. Okay.
When you look at the status report, you'll see the X's are moving back and forth. Generally, they're in the same spot, which I think is good. You'll recall Shelley mentioned Maraw Pond upgrades. That's going to end up being way further and way more than our 90,000. So that X has moved down a little bit further. The other one is the first one, which is the branding. It's over in the danger zone, and if danger means exit. Okay.
I read that too. I think it's just because they've just been ordered. So, I mean, I don't even know the estimated time of when they arrive, not to mention when they will be placed. I think that's why it's in danger.
I think if you read it, I think the paint was more than quote or something like that, but let me just quickly, specifically the branding one, Tom, is that what?
Yeah, that's the one that really is in the danger zone.
Additional costs were identified to have banners installed, and costs for painting are higher than anticipated. So that's probably why it's moved into not on track. But if something were to change to an extent where it's gonna go, like we have some playing room typically with projects, like depending on the CEO and what they're comfortable with, like to approve within like a couple %. But otherwise, then it'd have to come back as a request anyway, so the council would know at that time as well. But at least then you have like a heads up if you read these, that, hey, this may be coming. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and then any roundtable discussion items? I think we can probably skip that. I think we've, unless anybody has anything. Okay, we'll move along to the information items. Email from Andrew Garner. Anybody have a chance to read that? Yeah, they want us to eat more veggies. Yeah. Yeah, it's to Mayor Dirksen. It's updated. So. Any thoughts on that, Nancy or Bill? I kind of feel like I'll just glaze over it and be done with it.
Information only.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we support all, yeah, in the heart of beef country here. Okay, the next one is the Bradley Foundation meeting minutes. I think you can review that at your leisure. And then the Métis Local 888, they're looking for us to have a little ceremony with them on June 21st, raising the Métis flag on that day. Any thoughts on that? Yeah. Yep. Okay, it's in the calendar, so that's another information item there. Just formal request, I guess, from them came via email.
To draw your attention, Mr. Deputy, you'll notice in the Bradley Foundation minutes that they're changing the policy around short skirts and shorts, more than 2 inches above the knee. I just thought it would be appropriate for you to know that the world isn't just at school, right?
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Getting provocative in there, are they? I guess so. Yeah, 2 inches above the knee is as high as you can go.
Well, I think I should.
Yeah.
Oh, I pretty much
Okay. I think that's all we have, unless anybody else has anything to add. Nancy, Bill, any closing words of wisdom? No, not a whole lot of wisdom.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah. Thanks, Nancy. You as well. Okay, thanks, guys. We will adjourn the meeting, or do we have to? Sorry, we have to vote on the information items. So
Just accept, I can accept them as information.
Accept this information, yeah.
Perfect, awesome. All in favor? Okay,
Favor.
have a good rest of your days, guys, and we'll adjourn at 1:40. Is that another record?
Everyone.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.